Welcome, everyone. I'd like to call this meeting order for the Corporation of the Township of Pleasant, February 8th, 2023. And I'll start with roll call. Who goes first this week? All right, Councillor Bailey.
Present.
Councillor Hurst. Present. Councillor Goyda.
Present.
And Councillor Sipolis. Present. Now we'll begin our moment of reflection. That concludes our moment of reflection. Ms. Swipe, take a resolution for confirmation of the agenda, please.
The council approves the February 8th, 2023 agenda and addendum is circulated, and the council approves the additions to the agenda as follows. Consent item 6.1.4, questions received from council seeking additional information and the corresponding responses provided by staff, and consent item 6.1.5, the January 18th, 2023 council meeting minutes.
Move for that, please. Councillor Sipolis, second by Councillor Hurst. Any comments or questions? All in favor? Carried. Next, we have disclosure of pecuniary interest. Any disclosure of pecuniary interest? I will go first. The Mayor Sealy hereby declare potential pecuniary interest related to item 14.1 of the agenda, as I was previously employed by the Township of Pleasant. Any other disclosure of pecuniary interest? Councillor Goyda.
Yes, I, Jessica Goya, declare an interest on item 9.3.3, Foxrite Phase 2 condo plan revision, and the nature of the interest is that I am a member of the board of directors for Wellington vacant land condo 246, and therefore have a pecuniary interest.
Thank you, Councillor Goyda. Councillor Sipolis.
Yes, I, Councillor Johnson, hereby declare a potential pecuniary interest on item 9.3.1 ADM 2023-005 Community Infrastructure and Housing Accelerator. SHIHA request a spill innovation community development. The general nature of the pecuniary interest is that I reside on site of 20 North, which will be impacted by the development should proceed. As such, my property value may be affected, which requires I declare a pecuniary interest as defined in the municipal conflict of interest act.
Thank you. Any from this other side of the council? No. Excellent.
Mayor Sealy, may I move a motion
Or
to change the order of business?
can we do the yes? Yes, we can.
I'd like to move that we move report 9.3.1 to immediately follow the delegation.
We have a seconder for that. Councillor Hurst. All right. Any discussion on that? All in favor? Right, that's carried. So we have to note that John accused himself from that.
I'll make a note in a minute.
Sorry, so that was 9.3.1. Okay. Excellent. Time for first delegation. You're here to go. All right. So I will invite our first delegate up. That's Fred Taylor and Steve Edwards. We're in 6678 Wellington Road 34.
We also have council members to speak up.
Mr. CEO just mentioned that to me, and I was going to ask the council to try to project their voice. All right.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, Councilor, staff, and everybody else. I'm Fred Taylor with GHD. I'm an agent for the company that is proposing to do a bylaw amendment of 6678 Wellington County Road 34. There's an update report on the agenda, which was delegated to provide the comments. With me on Zoom, Stephen Edwards, senior planner for GHD as well. Was that the last public meeting we're looking at on this matter as well?
Sure. I'll maybe just pause you briefly while Bert just makes that individual over. Apologies.
Steve Edwards.
It should be
Thank you,
there.
Mark. There we go.
So we have a few updates on our side. I won't take much of your time. Just wanted to point out a few things. Number one, we have consulted with Hardin Environmental Energy and Blue Plan and addressed all of their previous comments. Most of their comments were about potential environmental impacts regarding the operation. And as you know, we previously committed to the township to do engineered liners. They need the pond, the stockpile area, and the drainage well. To address those liners will go a long way to addressing the problem. In addition, we will be proposing further groundwater studies and increase monitoring to address the remaining concerns. And these additional activities will be documented in our formal response to the latest township comments. This response is due by February 17th and can be considered in the planning report for a market council meeting. Number two, we also see that as the planning update report for this meeting, there was additional comments by another consultant, XCG. Unfortunately, it appears that all of the necessary information was not provided by XCG, or they did not consider it. However, we have discussed their comments with XCG. We've talked about the missing information and provided some of them. And again, we believe that we can address all of their comments. And again, we committed to install any of their liners and additional monitoring groundwater studies to do that. Finally, the monitoring program for this operation will be specified as in the environmental compliance approval and will require compliance with all the access to all requirements. We re-consulted with the MECP for this and other similar sites. In fact, we recently received the environmental compliance approval for this whole site and with these requirements in the access to all requirements. However, the applicant is committed to conducting additional monitoring and other reasonable measures required by the township to prevent impact to the environment and address your concerns, as long as these are reasonable on the road. Number three, we also noticed some errors in information memo provided for this meeting. We just wanted to point out a few things. Capital savings annual compliance reports do clearly state that imported fuel is being brought into the site. The report stated that it was not. The report also says that the building at the site licensed area, the operations and the hydrovac area is not shown in the site plans. That is incorrect. It's shown on all the site plans back in 2004. Minor correction, we just want to point out something. Number four, trucking is a concern as we heard in the public meeting. Planning and development advisory committee. Large volume trucking is allowed by the pit license of this property on the order of 1 million tons of material per year from that site. However, to further address the concerns that we've raised, the applicant will commit to reduce the number of trucks that it brings in with the bill by 25%. That's from 25 trucks down to 19. 19 trucks every day per year. It's on the order of 20,000 tons of material compared to 1 million tons of material that's allowed to be by truck. That was property. Number five, just to read again what we stated in the application and the public meeting, sampling documentation that we were doing are doing right now, although voluntary, complies with all the MECP access requirements. DCA may also require additional site-specific requirements, and we would comply with those. And finally, access control can be imported to the licensed area right now, in accordance with the regulation that MRF passed last year, Ontario Regulation 395-22. Number 6 and the last one. The MECP DCA will require a bunch of financial assurance to put some money aside in case something happens with the applicant or the operation and they clean up the site or the material site on the order of $100,000 each problem. The applicant is going to do that when we get a DCA, but the applicant is also willing to put up additional funds for financial assurance or some other mechanism that we call the civil township and considering this application so that there's additional money there available to the township for the site with additional things being done. We talk on a preliminary basis to the township about that, and we will provide some formal proposals in our response for February 17th to look at that. just another thing, because we think we want to do the right thing, but want to make sure the town is very comfortable that if issues come up, we can have them addressed, we have the ability to do that outside of forcing around. Yeah. So the animal is providing full responses to all additional recent comments that everybody's talking. And we feel pretty comfortable that we can address all the concerns and comments on previous items that have been raised. We wish to continue the collaboration with the township to get through this process. I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, certainly we'd be happy to try to answer them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions or clarification items needed from the members of council?
I do have a question, actually. Thank you for coming. The question that I have is maybe more of a process question, just so that I can understand kind of how things are in there. You spoke about this liner that is, as far as I understand, is going to be where the water and soil is dumped along with the ditch, where it ultimately flows into stormwater pond, and that will be lined as well. And then the water and soil will stay in that stormwater management pond until it's tested, and then released or whatever happens to it. But in the report that we had in our agenda by XCG, it said that testing can take up to a week. And so what I'm trying to understand and grapple with is that I'm assuming that operations don't stop, and every day more soil and more water is added and sort of all mixes together in this pond. And so I'm having a difficult time understanding at one point, even though that the water in that pond is clean, at any given point in time, there's more potentially contaminated water and soil being further dumped in and mixed in with that. Is there a way to contain each, for lack of a better word, batch separate from one another to know that this water was this day and it's tested clean, so it can and this water was this day? How did that, can you just clarify how that works?
Very much, and a good summary of the operation. So the pond is going to be sized with the liner to account for a week's worth of storage of water. And where the soil is placed on the ground, the soil and water is placed on the ground, there is a water holding pit that is being excavated out of the ground. It's all going to be lined as well. That will contain water all the way to the sampling of the pond. That's how we're going to do very simple fashion. And we need to describe that in a lot of detail to your result and how that corresponds back and forth to build creates that's the right approach that will fully address the issue for the weight of the data versus having something base that has the same.
So you'll provide more on that when it comes back to council.
Yeah, the council approves in principle the concept and the extension. We're going to do a detailed engineering work plan to provide it to the county, given I have agree on it, provide necessary all that detail, all able to agree to that finalize it.
And sorry, one follow-up question. I also was concerned when I read in the report that it mentioned that the compliance assessment reports for capital paving aren't showing any rehabilitation and still imported for rehabilitation. Because that was one of the big positives that you had said with the rationale for going on with this. But I heard you say that is in error. So if that's so, will you provide that clarification and information again when it comes back to council?
Good question. Yeah, so I actually brought one report. It's on day 6 of last year's report. It one builder imported into the site location exactly what it said. Right off of the point of fairly responding. Good question.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Thank you. Any further questions? I'm just going to wait one moment. We're getting some indication that you're not quite able to be heard, so we're just going to adjust that.
Just gonna move this here. Let's see.
So maybe it's great to sign the, I don't think it's anyone's favorite, so capture the council members, we'll just sign it. See how it goes. Any other questions?
I was wondering if there was opportunity to have in writing what you said today. I was trying to take notes, Natalie, but you'll have to provide it to staff.
I'll email it to you. We're going to process everything. Absolutely.
How do you notice I've taken your clients' trucks? Are they all tri-drive trucks? So all three drive, three axles on the back of them, vacuum trucks. So where are they? I'm curious as the actual capacity of all the vehicles, because there's quite a difference in vacuum trucks across the industry. It started out as tandem trucks with tanks on them. My uncle works in the industry. He calls the ones you're operating tri-drives, and then now you're starting to see them with two steers and three axles at the back. So what that means, they can carry more. So I want to know the exact capacity of those trucks in your fleet, because volume wise too. Because that makes a difference on how much water and soil is coming in, right? Because some stuff is weighs heavier than others. So volume wise, because that dictates how much water you're dumping or slurry or whatever it is.
I can provide a clarification right now on this in general. So each truck is approximately 10 tons of soil and water. Each load is about 60% water, 40% soil. Most loads are 100% full, so it's less than 10 tons. And we can convert that clearly into volumes and provide that in our response.
I'd like to know the maximum capacity of because that's going to be the maximum you're going to get bringing daily, weekly. It's similar to our site plan alteration bylaw. They make an assumption on a truck, a dump truck. They were using the tandem, which was X amount of yards. Majority of the trucks were triaxles. So if you counted 10 tandem trucks, then you switch to triaxles, you're bringing in more fill. Could be. The other thing I want to ask is, can you explain the position that there wasn't any environmental impact by your operations, but then we see reports from our peer review that it appears that there are environmental impacts. So I'm just wondering how, if you can explain that.
Yeah, there's a lot of data that we've collected, and we show that the soil basically meets table one for the most part. The groundwater always meets positive criteria. The other consultant looked at that data and said, well, perhaps you should have done more sampling of groundwater. Perhaps you should have done more sampling of soil other than what you're bringing in to show whether or not there's impact before you operated or during your year of operation. So we had that discussion with the other consultant, and we're responding to him. We're going to propose some additional sampling to address that, including putting some more groundwater wells in, because the groundwater isn't 100% understood in a very good sense. Your other consultant, Hard Environmental, had the same comment, and to revise that groundwater study and monitoring program to get more data and understand the geology and the hydrogeology of the site better. We are sampling at the right place for the right things to make that determination and look at all of it.
So the implementation of the line pond is to prevent contamination of soil. Since we didn't have the starting point of native soil, if we test it now, there's potential that there's been contamination, but that's going to be base starting point.
Correct. All of that material in the pond has to be removed so we can mine it properly. We stockpile and sample. We'll know whether it's contaminated.
You made a comment that 1 million tons of material can be moved on trucks. What you're referring to, and I'm assuming, is that the pit is licensed to extract 1 million tons annually. Is that what you're referencing?
Correct.
That doesn't mean that you can bring in 1 million tons of material.
Definitely not.
Right.
So shared haul road is kind of the message I was trying to get across, right? So there's a lot of truck traffic in the shared haul.
So what you're trying to imply is that if the pit is extracted and that when that license was granted, that we should endure indefinitely 1 million tons of material moving through that operation?
Not at all, no. My point is that the order of magnitude of what we're bringing in is way down here versus what's allowed in terms of truck volume and travel and frequency. It's a huge difference.
Yeah.
All we're saying, we're just having a little bit of truck travel versus what's allowed now. That is completely separate from our operating.
Are you also aware that aggregate operations are intended to be the interim use? So what I'm saying to you is the community may be, tolerant of the truck traffic, knowing it's an interim use. Now we're going to go to a permanent use. That's a different conversation.
Oh, that's fair. I can't speak for Cal paving. I can only speak for our applicant. And we're committed to only bringing in that 20,000 tons a year maximum for the future of this operational, which we have proposed to be 10 years.
I think that's all I have for you. General staff, they want some clarification.
Follow up. What is the timeline for implementing the minor ponds? Is that something that's starting now? My concern is as we're talking and we're getting reports written and we're doing all this from here, stuff is still happening back on site. So at what point are we actually implementing some of the changes and when is the minor being implemented?
In our November commitment to do the liner, we propose a time frame that once township agrees with the contract, we will have 60 days to prepare a detailed engineering plan. Once township approves that plan, we will implement it. And in that plan will be the schedule for doing the work. If council is concerned about that being delayed and being dragged out, we can look at expediting that sometime.
Are you prevented in any way for starting that now?
No, we can do that. That's council's desire. I mean, we want to make sure we're all on the same page with all the stuff that we're going to do, and we need to do something, and then town can come back and say, well, we'll look at your work plan, you should do it differently. So it's a two-way street, right? We're going to do it together.
I have one further follow-up question. Your water usage, there's been some discrepancy in how much water you use and using municipal water. Can you speak to how much water you use, whether it's per day or per month?
Sure. We don't have a permit to take water because we do not take 50,000 liters for 24 hours from that well that's on site. We take about 40,000 liters. That's not enough to fill all 19 trucks every day. So the other water comes from the city of Guelph, that's plus one municipal water supply somewhere. But all of that water is brought back to the site and goes in a pond and recharged, either groundwater or discharged.
Any further questions? Question resolution, I've seen the delegation.
Yeah, the council received a delegation by Fred Taylor and Steve Edwards regarding 6678 Wellington Road 34 for information.
Councilor Bailey, second by Councilor Hurst, all in favor?
Thank you for your time and your questions.
Right, our next delegation is Dylan Smith, providing council funds for the application of the Crossroads. So.
Could you speak up more? Maybe it's just me. I can't hear a word back. It's awesome to hear.
Big room. I would suggest people that don't have difficulty hearing, move to further back, and maybe some of the people that are having trouble, maybe move to the empty seats in the front.
Having trouble.
Put your hand up.
It's an application. 5% not having trouble. That's just a question.
Welcome back, everyone. Sorry about calling your name incorrectly, Jillian. It was a typo on my agenda. So welcome to Worcester Council. You can begin when you're ready.
Thank you. My name is Jillian Smith, and I'm a planner at MHVC, which is a planning and urban design company. We are the agent representing Wellington Group of Companies, which is a logistics company. And we recently submitted a zoning bylaw amendment application for the property located at 128 Brock Road South in Puslinch. The intent of this application is to rezone the lands from highway commercial to industrial in order to permit a warehouse, an office, as well as surface parking. So as part of this application, we also submitted several supporting studies, which included a functional servicing and stormwater management report, a wastewater report, a geotechnical report, a hydrogeological report, an environmental impact study, a transportation impact study and a justification report. And since the application has been submitted, we have posted the notice on the property, as well as I believe the studies have been circulated to relevant agencies for comment. So we are here today to seek a complete application. And I'm happy to answer any questions at this time.
Okay, thank you, Jillian. It's my understanding that today council is just trying to, or not trying to, will be deeming the application complete.
Correct.
So that's what we're dealing with today. Okay, councilors, any questions or comments for the delegation? Go ahead, Councilor. Make sure you project your voice, please.
Thanks for coming today. I just had a question, and I'm sorry I don't know where the which report I read it in, but I just wanted an explanation. It said there was 123 tractor and trailer parking spaces. Oh, it said 50 tractor parking spaces and 73 trailer parking spaces. So 21 loading spaces, but the predicted volume of trucks coming and going is only 30 per day. 15 in and 15 out. So can you just explain the rationale and why we're needing all these extra parking spaces when there's only 30 trucks a day coming?
Yes, so given the size of the property, this is going to be the main hub of Wellington Group of Companies. So they have several depots all across Ontario, and this is going to be their central location. So I believe the intent is to store their trucks and so on this property.
And then this might be a question for staff, but I read that the concept plan had changed since September. So I just want confirmation that what I've seen in our agenda today is the most current concept plan. And are all the comments still relevant to the updated plan?
Should we discuss it? For a better time? Yeah. Just curious.
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair, so I can say to the first, Councilor Wheeler, your first comment, yes, correct. The information is all updated. And Mr. Chair's comment, yes, this is just the first step to deem it complete, and then this will be before council again, and before the public again, before any decision.
I'm not sure it's the appropriate time, but there were some action items that were requested by Hardin to be answered. So has that been done, and is that part of meeting the application to be completed?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So there often are some items that maybe need a little bit more review, a little bit more detail provided, and that would occur through our formal review and consultation process. That happens once the application is deemed complete, and then it will be recirculated in a number of submissions may be required to make sure that the township is satisfied with its being provided. Thank you.
Any comments, questions?
No, I don't have any questions of the applicant. I have questions regarding the report, which I'll save until we deal with the report later in the afternoon.
Okay, thank you. Jillian, I appreciate your time today. The resolution.
The council received the delegation by Jillian Smith regarding the application 128 Brock Road South for information.
Okay, move it on, please. Councilor Slow, second by Councilor Goyette. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Pause recording. All right, next I'll invite Mr. Estelle and Mr. Wygood up to the delegation table, please. Have names on it? Just delegate.
Delegate, oh, okay.
Want to write your name on it?
Well, I don't know, I saw a name tag, but you know.
We're a lean machine here. We don't make name tags for every delegation. Okay, whenever you're ready.
So what we're looking for is a path forward. A path forward to locate our head office in Bush Lynch. And we're looking for a partnership with Bush Lynch. And all we're looking for is, would Bush Lynch be willing to partner with us in helping us move forward?
I know one of the studies, we have a number of studies that we have done and a number we will do. We've done a lot of environmental studies, movement and traffic studies. All of the studies will be done and all of the processes will be followed. One step in the process is we need to do a community consultation. And I'd like to ask Bush Lynch to set that community consultation because we have a deadline to make a decision to locate in Bush Lynch or not locate in Bush Lynch. And if we could have the community consultation, then I think it would make it easier to find out if we can address issues or if we can. That's really all. And if there's questions, I can answer any questions. We've submitted what we want to do, and it is an integrated head office, net zero, so it's no, net zero environmental impact. We want to have trails, we want to have skating rink, we want to have community use soccer field, that kind of thing. But
So I mean, I grew up in the community, so I understand many of the comments that are made within the submission. We're really trying to find some way forward where we can build a property that people are pleased with and proud of, and really looking for council's guidance with that. And the public consultation meeting is really how we achieve some of that with engagement in the community. But that's really for us what we're hoping to achieve.
For me, Bush Lynch needs sustainability, and putting the sustainability completely on the residential taxpayer is problematic. You end up with high tax increases due to inflationary pressures, things that are well out of our control. So we need, development of employment lands, and that happens on marginal farmland, secondary ag, so that we can sustain the township. Is that meaning that this is the ideal place for it? We don't know that yet, right? We do have industrial parks. We may have a place that this project would be ideal. We don't know that yet. So council today is not taking a position on whether they're supportive of your proposal or not. I think at a high level, if you take the location component out of it, it's a wonderful proposal. But what we're going to discuss today is whether we have the confidence in a CHIA process and the minister that would have ultimate control over the designation of those lands in this project. And that's what you're likely to hear at the conclusion of today. It's not going to be whether the environmental concerns have been addressed or not, or the trucking's been addressed or not, or we're going to focus our discussion today on, do we have the confidence in the minister to do what's right for this community by applying for a CHIA? That's where I stand on this right now, and everybody in this room. It's going to happen one way or the other because it's on the agenda, so we're going to find out, and I look forward to those conversations. So a little preamble there, but I'm now to council for their questions or clarification. And you did hear that we're going to move your report up. So once we go through the delegations from the public, then we're going to deal with it right away. So then that way, everybody can continue on the day, not wait around for the comments. Sorry,
so I appreciate from the business leadership standpoint, you need direction to and I look at it from your perspective. I think I can understand what you're looking for is where we're at today, where you go forward. I think, as Mayor Seeley noted, very much based on the feedback we had in the report, the CHIA process, the process, and I think there's a lot of elements that go along with that. So I think that to me is how it was presented initially. We maybe need to reevaluate that aspect. And I think for today, it's not a support the project or not support the project. I think it's much more in my mind the process or the journey that we go through. We need to reevaluate that. That's what's in the best interest of it. So I think just brief comment from my standpoint, but I completely understand as business leaders, you need to know where you need to go, type of thing. And then no directions is right. So
yeah, I want to echo what both Mayor Seeley and Councilor Hurst has said. From a business perspective, I understand that you're in a position where you want to know if if this is something that we can work together on or not, so that you can make your decisions. For me, it's the process, and that's what really is the decision for us today, is whether or not we proceed along the lines with this CHIA process. And I guess maybe I could just pose this question to you. What is the rationale for using this specific tool, the CHIA tool, rather than going through the normal one?
Well, the CHIA process is designed for a user, not a developer. We are not a developer. We're not trying to just zone property. We were asked by the province to do a CHIA, and that's why we did it. And that if we had that process, then I would have confidence that this will get done. Otherwise, you're asking us to buy a piece of secondary, relatively poor agricultural land, and many times it's property value, which we simply will not do. And we will choose to, we have to locate elsewhere. We can't take a risk that we've just bought a piece of property that's, it is on the inlet. It's zoned industrial above it, industrial below it. It's been said often that the inlet should be for developments like this, but it's, I believe, too risky. The comment that the mayor made about the financial impact, you would be able to close a sound system if we were to. We did a calculation of the present value of tax base, and it's about $30 million that would add to.
I guess when you talk about risk, though, you're saying that you're reluctant to purchase a piece of property and take that risk, but the alternative in going for the CHIA is that the municipality takes on that risk. So that's.
No, please,
It's okay. Go ahead. That's pretty much the comment that I have to make about it. Is shifting the risk from one to the other doesn't necessarily mean that it's good planning either way. So I guess that's just my comment to that. And if you want to respond to that, then that's good.
If the township or Bushland is not willing to partner on this, I understand. And that is a reasonable answer. If that's the if that's the decision, I understand. And we have alternatives, and I'm not trying to shoehorn ourselves into it, not want it. I do want people to know who we are, and I mean I don't want to go over and not want it. I understand that.
The council received a delegation by Jim Estelle and Rob Weigand to provide council with comments regarding the agenda item 9.1. It's a report with respect to community infrastructure and housing accelerator request for the Estelle Innovation Community Development for information.
Can I get a movement plan, please? Mr. Guida, second by Mr. Hurst, all in favor? Great. Thank you for calling it Puss Lunch, not Puss Lunch. We're not in action. Please don't delegate and call Puss Lunch. Okay, so our next delegation council requested that they have 3 members at the delegate table. And I said that I would entertain the request, and the clerk's advice that we would need a motion to
Modify from our normal procedure to permit 3 delegates instead of maximum 2.
have a table. I would appreciate that if we allow the 3 delegates, that we don't take 30 minutes to discuss the proposal. We've all received plenty of feedback from the community on the concerns. So you can keep it fairly brief by saying I support the concerns of the community, whatever they may be. If the person spoke before you, but we don't need to review verbatim every item. So in that case, I would be supportive of allowing 3rd delegates. Somebody would have to pull up a 3rd chair for us, but so council would, Councilman would propose.
Am I doing something? So there's a member of council that would close that, please. Mover, second. Comments? Okay, all in favor? Is that good enough? Okay. So that next delegation is Dan Forstel, Dan Newendorf, and Angie. I can't see her last name. What she said.
Good start.
Yeah, I'm just them sit down.
There we go. Are you seated?
I see it.
Good.
So just introduce yourself. There's three. They're both Dan's, but
I'm Daniel Forstel and I live on side road 20 North. Listen.
would you like to begin?
Oh, you want me to start now?
Yeah.
I'll tell you, you want everyone to
Just
just.
what you tell us.
I already introduced myself as Daniel Forstel, so I don't need to do that again. Good morning, Mayor Sealy and councilors. I'll say it again. My name is Daniel Forstel and I live on side road 20 North in Pusland. Thank you for the opportunity to present this delegation regarding the Steel Innovation Community and the use of the Community Innovative and Housing Accelerator Order to expedite the proposed development. I want to thank you for your leadership and commitment to the residents of Puslet, to all the councilors and the mayor. By better understanding our history, we are better equipped to plan our future. Our history is the foundation upon which a better community is built. The first, as you're aware, the first Puslet Council met in 1850, and the first reed was John Cockburn. And since then, every subsequent elected council has worked to preserve and protect Puslet. Upon reviewing your platforms from the last municipal election, you all spoke about preserving the great community in which we live, along with preserving our environment and the water. We know that this current council was elected to continue this tradition of preserving what is valued most to our residents. Today, we're asking you to continue to preserve and protect our township by not allowing development decisions to be made by the province through the Community Innovative and Housing Accelerator Order. We have a great sense of community on Side Road 20, Concession 4 and Forstel Road. The people behind me are my neighbors. They've been there a long time. We know our neighbors. We meet and visit with them as we safely bike, jog, walk our dogs, and walk with our children. Often when I'm walking or biking, I spend more time talking and visiting to the neighbors than I do biking or walking. Often, we look out for our neighbors from the youngest to the oldest. This is what I love about our community. Just in the days of the one-room school, if anyone around here remembers the one-room schools in Puslet continues to reinvent itself, creating newer and stronger communities. What will become of our social fabric if Steel is allowed to build a 600-employee factory on these roads? The increased traffic and speeding that comes with that will destroy an important feature of our community. We need to protect what is left. In preparation for this meeting, we prepared a petition which we distributed to our neighbors. This petition was distributed last week, and 100% of the 130 respondents opposed the Steel development. We distributed the petition to residents within 3 kilometers of the proposed development. This area is bordered by Wellington Road 34 to the south, 35 to the west, Forstel Road on the north. We wanted to understand how people felt about this development. Of the responses we received, 100% oppose the development who live on Side Road 20 North 34.
90% opposed to development who live on Forestell Road, 70% opposed to development who live on Concession 4, and we received 33 signatures opposing the development of Wellington 34 and 35. Our concerns should not be dismissed as NIMBYism. We are fighting for the health and the well-being of our environment and all of the residents of Puss Ledge. The Township Council and its residents need to determine safe industrial growth that benefits all of Puss Ledge. We need to establish regulations that ensure industry grows in a way that minimizes the negative impact on our farmland, even if it's only secondary farmland, it's still farmland, the environment and humans. Industry clashes with nature and humans. They can't coexist as good neighbors. The council has a choice. You represent the residents of Puss Ledge who voted for you to protect the gradually diminishing farmland and sense of community and green space in the township. Once this land is paved over, once that proposed development area is paved over, it's gone forever. And all of the tax revenue in the world can't replace or buy the quality of life that will be lost with this development. It needs to stop. This starts with saying no to the proposed community innovation, I can't even say innovation, housing and acceleration order. Thank you very much. I appreciate your time.
Okay, I'm Angie Mason. Thanks for hearing from me today. You need my address, right?
I didn't need, I just, because there's three of you, I just went to the dance.
Okay. I'll try to keep it short because I thought I had 10 minutes, so I'll try to breeze through it. I'm a licensed professional geoscientist and hydrogeologist. In my professional life, I specialize in groundwater supply and impact assessments related to land development. I'm also a Puss Ledge resident and taxpayer. My husband Mike and I and our two young children live at the north end of Side Road 20, directly across the road from the agricultural property where the Estill development is proposed. Our family has resided at this location for over 30 years. My husband Mike grew up farming sheep and horses with his parents on their 20-acre parcel adjacent to us. We conveniently purchased the house next door in 2016, and we have settled there and started to grow our family. I was nominated by some of our neighbors to speak today regarding some of our environmental concerns regarding the proposed development. I wanted to start by stating that our community is strongly opposed to this development, which I guess you already know.
You don't have to skip over your entire presentation. There's plenty of time.
I was short.
First game was.
I understand.
There's important points there.
Okay. Anyway, it's been upsetting for all of us. However, I understand that council today is voting on the use of the CHIA process. So I restructured this talk just this morning to try to speak more to that. I'm by no means an expert in the CHIA process. It's so new. However, from reviewing the attachments to the proposed agenda today, it's my understanding that the CHIA process cannot proceed without a plan to adequately mitigate potential impacts, which includes 3 items. The first being community engagement, the second, Indigenous engagement, and the third, environmental protection and mitigation. So firstly, regarding community engagement, the only engagement we have had to date was the township's notice of intent for community feedback, which we received right before Christmas. The notice referenced the More Homes for Everyone Act and the Community Infrastructure and Housing Accelerator tool. So many of us got this and just assumed that the development would involve building some houses. We are in the middle of a housing crisis in this province, so that would make sense. After speaking with some neighbors, we were shocked to find out that the actual plans for this property were a huge industrial complex. The second item I mentioned was Indigenous engagement. To my knowledge, it doesn't sound like this has even begun. I can verify that some of the upset residents in attendance here are also First Nations. The third item is environmental protection and mitigation. This is primarily what I wanted to speak about today. I want to go over some concerns regarding noise and light pollution, as well as the impacts to groundwater and our wetlands. So I live at the north end of Side Road 20, and my front yard faces the Hanlon, as well as this Estill property. We already have had a taste of what it's like to be impacted by noise and light at our location because of the industrial buildings in the city of Guelph, which are right across the Hanlon from us. So let's talk about light pollution or light trespassing. My in-laws next door can no longer keep their blinds open at night because of the glare from the industrial buildings. And they have concerns about how it might be affecting their livestock. Now, to clarify, these buildings are about 300 meters away. Think of how many residents are within 300 meters of the proposed Estill development. Our problems with industrial noise have been even worse than this. While I was pregnant with my son in 2021, I found myself often awoken at night to an intermittent low frequency hum and vibration in our home. I felt like I was going crazy. It sounded like a generator or a diesel truck parked right in our front yard. But when I went to investigate, there was nothing there. The MECP typically handles these types of industrial noise complaints, but they were not able to investigate without knowing where the source was. So my husband, Mike, and I got a babysitter on several occasions so we could go drive around and try to find out where this noise was coming from. So this was sadly our version of a date night for a while. Eventually, we figured out where the noise was coming from. It was from Medline's refrigeration trucks parked in their truck bays facing the Hanlon with our house beyond the Hanlon. It only took a single refrigeration truck to cause this noise and vibration within our home. And this occurred intermittently at all hours of the day. This type of noise is loud and capable of traveling all the way across the Hanlon, 300 meters to our house. The Estill development will only be about 50 meters from our house, much closer than Medline, 300 meters away. How are we going to be able to continue to live here? We're not the only ones in the community who have had noise issues. Remember the wedding venue on Concession 4, trucks pulling in and out, setting up roads blocked from traffic, coach buses, shuttle services. The poor residents on Concession 4 were at their wits' end. And that was only on the weekend, 2 days a week. And let's not forget about the commercial trucking company on Concession 4 with their trucks warming up and pulling out at 5 a.m. every day. I understood that was only 5 trucks. I'm sure Estill plans to have more than that. The final issue I wanted to discuss today is the one related to my profession, water. It's difficult to compare the proposed development with other nearby industrial properties when you consider the servicing aspects. Industrial properties within the city of Guelph were designed to be there through land use planning and zoning with appropriate roads for the truck traffic, as well as water and wastewater servicing. Puss Lynch is different. These side roads are small and hilly. There are no sidewalks. Everyone walks and bikes on the road. Water and wastewater services are not available. We are all on private wells and septic systems. When you look at the site plans, apart from the fact that they have truck bays facing houses in both versions, and I haven't seen any of these plans for parks, soccer fields, or any of that. They also seem to be missing a large septic teaching bed that they would require. I wanted to also point out that both of the concept plans I have seen place their large building right on top of an existing provincially significant wetland. I'm not sure how they thought that was going to be okay. These are some of our last remaining wetlands, and they serve an important function both hydrologically and for sensitive species in the area. There are reasons why an industrial development of this scale is not permitted in Wellington County's official plan. Even the small 6-acre corner that is zoned rural employment is supposed to be limited to small scale development, and they're supposed to consider land use compatibility. They're also supposed to be limited to dry usage, which is defined as uses which do not use significant amounts of water in their operations, and which do not produce significant amounts of effluent consistent with rural servicing levels, which rely on private water and wastewater sewage systems. What Estill is proposing with 600 plus employees, 24-hour operations, and possible manufacturing occurring on site, they will require a significant amount of water. One of the reports estimated 140,000 liters a day, and that was just for an 8-hour shift. Water use at this quantity would require both firms to take water and sewage ECA, and is not consistent with rural servicing levels in the area. Some of the residents have already reported problems with water quantity in their wells. How is the drawdown at this industrial property going to affect them? Further, the development is currently within the Wellhead Protection Area D, which is within the 25-year capture zone for the City of Guelph municipal supply wells. The city also recently drilled a new well on Forest Hill Road, and they are in the middle of a 5-year EA process with plans to add it to their water supply master plan. Once this goes through, the Estill site will be within approximately the 2-year capture zone for this well. Any contaminants, including sewage and manufacturing effluent, could be a threat to water supply. And the city's new well is about 1.6 kilometers away. And if this is a 2-year travel time, think of how close the other private wells could be. I hope that the township will support the residents and taxpayers by rejecting the proposal and zoning change to industrial. Also, for the vote today, we hope that the township will reject the CHIA process and retain control of what happens on these lands. If the township plans to beginning to allow development on these lands, I hope they will do so mindfully and sustainably, with careful planning, including adequate separation distances and mitigation of impacts to sensitive land uses. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor Sealy and councilors. I'm the other Dan, Dan Newdorf. I live at 4632 Side Road 20, and this is for 4631. So I want to talk to you personally for a couple minutes, and I have abridged my words. Last week, I received my tax bill from the township, and usually what I do is I open it. I look at when things are due, and I put it in my calendar a couple days before. But I didn't do that this time. I actually just looked at the tax bill envelope and asked myself, do I still want to live here if this development goes through? If my council says yes to a CHIA process that expedites things, is this the council that I want representing me? My interests and the interests of the community. During the all candidates meeting, I asked each of you to define Puss Lynch after 4 years of your leadership on council. I'm sure you all remember what you said. What attracted me to what you said was your focus on maintaining our community, ensuring that we residents continue to enjoy and thrive in our community. You sounded like you were going to represent my interests and the interests of my community. I was proud when the results came in, because you are the council that I wanted to represent me, my family, and all of Puss Lynch. I knew this council would represent us and provide stewardship for our township. But since December, I keep asking myself, why would a council that we elected to represent us even think of giving away control of decision-making to individuals and institutions who do not fully know who we are, where we live, and what we believe in? Council, if you're thinking of voting yes to the CHIA process, I want to ask you a question. Why would you agree to a process that gives away control of this development to the ministry? I elected you to have control, to provide stewardship and to protect my interests. Where is the value to me, to us in the CHIA process? I see the value for Mr. Estill and his partners. It's clear. As a business owner myself, I get that Mr. Estill and his partners want to thrive. The concept of what they are proposing is well-intentioned. I think we would all agree to this. It is quite evidenced by the attendance here today, people online and people who couldn't make it because they're working, that we're opposed to this development. But we're here today to discuss the CHIA and expediting this development, while at the same time losing control and not having the required input from council, from community, and because we're expediting. A yes vote for the CHIA in any way today means that all the feedback that you've received from us, including from residents who have lived in Pushlanch Township for more than 50 years, about what really matters to us, deeply matters to us, is not as important as expediting this development. I listened to the council meeting on December 21st several times. And the reference to even considering a truck terminal on Side Road 20. After all the studies and reports that Mr. Estill's done, it's clear he does not understand our neighborhood. He doesn't understand our need to preserve environmental, residential, and small agricultural community or our quality of life. If you say yes to this GIA and give away control of making these decisions, who knows what will eventually show up on Side Road 20. And finally, Mayor Sealy, at the council meeting on December 21st, you said the following: if we have all the neighbors on 20th Side Road not in support, it's going to be difficult. As Dan Forresto reported, we have 100% opposition on Side Road 20, as well as opposition on Concession 4, Forresto, Wellington 34, and Wellington 35.
You can speak.
Thank you.
People can hear you, but
I will go, I get animated, Mayor.
it's fine.
I only have one more sentence.
It's fine. It's nice to be passionate.
Thank you. I will be passionate with this in a lower key. I will borrow Mr. Estill's slogan for Danby and ask you to do the right thing for the residents of Pushlanch and say no to the CHIA process. Maybe on the CHIA process should not even be an option. Thank you.
I have some concerns with what you stated in your presentation. Being critical of council for receiving the request for a CHIA is what we're here to do. Because if we don't receive requests from the public, whether it be, as you saw in the previous delegation, the rezoning for another trucking terminal, and we just don't listen to anybody's requests, that's not democracy. That's not the way things should be done. You do have to have confidence in the council you elect will make the right decisions when you have an opportunity to come speak to us. So I would never be in a position where I wouldn't allow somebody, it's not even within my control, to come and ask for something. So to be critical of us for listing that proposal, you can tell that I am now a little passionate. So that's our job here. We have heard you. And I look forward to the report that we're going to address next and the conclusion that will come of that. But in the future, I would appreciate that the criticism of hearing applications, I don't think that's appropriate.
May I comment, Mr.
We may.
I agree with you, and I'm not being critical of council. I think what we're asking for is a well-laid plan for the township. And I think if we have that first, and then we can have discussions based on that, that's really what I'm asking for. I in no way criticize the council because I voted for you, and I'm here today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, council, any items of clarification or questions for the delegations? Any resolution, Ms. White, please? Sure, you don't have a hard time hearing Dan.
Which Dan?
That was pretty good too.
The council receives a delegation by Dan Forrestal and Dan Newdorf and Angie Mason to provide council with comments regarding the agenda item report ADM 2023-005, the community infrastructure and housing accelerator request.
Move for that, please. Councilor Goyda, seconder. Councilor Bailey. Are you out for these two? All in favor? Carried. All right, I believe we're on to that report. Thank you. Right. We don't permit people to address council from the. All right, so our next item is 9.3.1 in the Smith Way Fox report.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report is a follow-up to the delegation that occurred on December 21st, 2022, where we heard an initial request from Mr. Estelle for the use of new legislation that was put in place in April of 2022 with respect to the Planning Act. So council had a number of directions to staff coming out of that delegation, and this report addresses the follow-up to provide council with further information on what that legislation is, the intent of the legislation, and so that's laid out within the report in a chart form with some key follow-ups just below the chart there to summarize. The report also provides some information of the initial public consultation that occurred after that meeting, where a notice was sent, some information was placed on our website, as well as the opportunity to receive some initial feedback from the community, which we have. And I would like to just make a note that the report still identifies 22 individual comments were received. That has grown since the report was published. We're around 45 at this point, in addition to the petition that one of our delegates spoke about. So the report, again, just aims to provide some information that was requested by council, talk about some steps that have already taken place, and then there's a number of just suggestions within the report, should council wish to consider any of those.
Thank you. Can we have a resolution to table this report so we can discuss it?
Yep. Report ADM 2023-005 entitled Community Infrastructure and Housing Accelerator Request by Still Innovation Community. Kieran, after we're calling them the developer, and that proposal be received.
Thank you. May you move for that, please?
Sorry.
Councilor Goyda, seconded by Councilor Hurst. All right, Councilor Bailey.
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to thank all the residents for providing thoughts and coming here today. Community engagement is often tricky to get. So I really appreciate it when people come out and when people do speak up. I know it's important, and we're here to listen. So thank you for being here today. And here are some of my comments about the report that we've got, some of the delegation comments, and my thoughts on what's before us today. I agree with supporting innovative business ideas, especially where agricultural sector could benefit. However, I also fully support following the guidance of our local planning policies around purposeful, deliberate, planned land use. I support the direction of the growth plan in regards to where employment should be prioritized so that land compatibility is respected. I also fully support protecting our wetlands, especially ones that have been identified as provincially significant. And I really believe public input is very important and needed. An observation I made recently when council reviewed their goals for the upcoming term, nowhere in our discussions or in the report that we received was there any focus on expediting industrial growth or speeding up planning processes that bypass our current planning policies. There was mention of promoting unused industrial land areas in Quislinch. And of course, we're still waiting for the decision on OPA 119 regarding the regionally significant economic development area, which this land is not. We have some recommendations before us today in the report. I'm not in support of using the CHIA right off the bat. I do think there are a lot of concerns with having the ministry being able to modify anything that goes forward. So I don't believe there's a need for this to be expedited. I would, however, welcome a process that will take the project through an extremely thorough, thoughtful planning process, including proper studies and documentation, peer reviews, public engagement, and where any financial risk to the township is minimized and all costs related to the project are paid by the applicant.
Councilor Bailey, Councilor Hurst.
Well said, Councilor. Three comments from my perspective. I think the first one is, and I appreciate going back back to the all candidate meeting, that's really, really important. I think in an ideal situation, you can preserve the nature of the township in a beneficial way to everybody. And I think when we talk about industrial development, it's the right type of industrial development in the right place. And I think that's a challenge with all of us today. So I think that's this is a difficult thing to navigate long term. I would say significant challenges, and I think it comes through in the staff report with the CHIA process. It's quite new. As noted, it does take significant authority away from the township. And I think philosophically, from my standpoint, that's not something that's in the best interests of the township. I think I don't want to provide judgment today on support or not support of the developers' aspirations here, but I think what's really important is that we go through an appropriate process, appropriate community development discussions, understanding. Obviously, we have a really big turnout today. I think I commend all of you for taking time out of your schedules. This impacts your lives directly, and I think that's important that your voices are being heard. So moving forward, not supportive of the CHIA process. And I think moving forward, if Mr. Estelle and his partners are interested in going through a longer term process, more traditional process, I think that would be the right pathway for this community to go through. Councilor, go ahead.
Thank you. I just want to take a minute, and we don't often speak with many people at a council meeting. So thank you to all of you for coming and showing an interest in this and taking the time to write and to speak out. The words that I have read and heard today have been very powerful. And I have been sort of frantically writing my thoughts as the morning has progressed. For me, I'm disappointed that the CHIA tool is the tool that's being proposed. I do believe, as one of our delegates said today, that this concept is well-intentioned. And I do want to see balanced growth and development, especially in the township that has increasingly limited opportunities for growth. And that's important. But for me, at what cost does that come? And as you may or may not know, the CHIA process, it doesn't provide any assurances to the municipality. All of the risk is on the municipality. When we use this tool to make a request, the municipality can ask for certain conditions and specifications to address local concerns like the ones we have heard today. But the minister is not obligated to implement them, which means once that request is made, we don't have a voice at the table any longer. So for me, when I'm trying to evaluate the opportunity cost of this project, I can't quantify it because I don't know what measures are going to be in place to address those concerns. And how can any of us buy into something without knowing the cost? In the presentation, and this was pointed out today, in the presentation by the applicant that came before council in December, there was a line that said our mantra is to do the right thing. I think that's a great philosophy, and I would like to support that philosophy. But this particular tool, the CHIA tool, which bypasses public and municipal process, I don't believe is misaligned. I believe is misaligned with that mantra. And so with that being said, I cannot support the CHIA.
Thank you, Councilor Guda. So my comments are similar. I appreciate everybody coming on stage, taking time out of their day. Basically what's being asked of us today is to delegate our authority to the ministry. And I don't have the trust in the ministry at such a local level. And whether I have to be careful. I don't want to do a detriment to the township because they do. The government does provide us with grants for things that we can improve the community, but we want as much control as possible around this horseshoe. And there were some comments from the delegation about private wells and contamination. And I can't speak for the members here, but I have a pretty good finger on the pulse. This council would never support a development that would have impacts on private wells. We engage the city of Guelph because of their well at Forestel, their need for water, because of our concerns about the impacts on private wells. So that would have to be proven that it would have zero impact. So it's a great concern. But if there isn't an impact, it could be a different proposal, then we would support a proposal that doesn't have impacts. So it's great to know of all those concerns, but this council would never do anything to put at risk our water supply, because the reality is we're likely never to have a municipal water supply. It's all going to be private. So I've heard from council. The last point I want to state is that there is identified through the Wellington County, I don't know if it's through the MCR or which process, but there is a need in Pusson's for additional employment plans. The county has applied for that special economic rural development area, whatever the acronym is. It's worse than CHIA. So it's hard to remember. And from my understanding, the ministry again had a certain comment period, whether it was 60, 90 days, they were supposed to get back to Wellington County. They just sent us letters saying, we're not going to stick to that time period, we're going to extend it. So we do have a need for additional employment lands. Are they these lands? We don't know. If we had an answer from the ministry when they were supposed to, we would then easily be able to say, no, we don't have a need. We can point to policy. If the ministry says no to our special economic development area proposal, then we do have to go on the look for more employment lands. As I stated, we don't want the burden of supporting the township on the residential taxpayer. Previous delegation mentioned $30 million. That was over a prescribed amount of time, I believe, not annually. But that's to all tiers, provincial, for the education component, the county, for the township. If you do the math, we take 17% of commercial taxes. So it works out to $170,000 a year. It's not $30 million a year, right? So is it $170,000 on our budget is a significant impact. Don't get me wrong. As I made a little joke earlier that we run lead a meeting with the delegate name tags. That's pretty significant for us because a 1% tax increase is around $40,000. That's $40,000 annually that doesn't have to go on the residential taxpayer. What is it? Is this right? We don't know that yet. But what I'm hearing from this council, and I agree with it, is that she is not right for assumption. What that means today, if the council members vote as they have indicated, is that the council will not be supporting CHIA. And all that means is now it goes in the hands of the individual. Anyone in this room can go purchase that land, as I stated to Dan, allowed Dan, to purchase that land and bring a proposal forward. There it is. Bring a proposal forward for us to evaluate. That's what we're here for. We're not saying that that proposal will still come forward. We don't know. That's what we'll find out. But for today, it sounds like there will not be support for asking the minister for a CHIA. And that last I know valid on here. But this is not a knock at the people that brought the proposal forward. The confidence isn't in the minister or the ministry to put or any condition on that they shall be or remove. And we just cannot get behind that at all. So those are my comments, and I'll basically I'm gonna call for it. You'll read the first part of that resolution.
So that report ADM 2023-005 entitled Community Infrastructure and Housing Accelerator Request from Estelle Innovation Community. Proposal be received, and the council does not support the developer's request for municipally requested minister's order under subsection 34.1 of the Planning Act, known as a CHIA.
We have a mover to receive it as seconder. The mover is still comfortable with that. Seconder was, so Grace, you're still second, or still coming to second that? Okay, any last comments? No, all in favor? Okay, carried. Thank you very much. Pause so that from our brief recess. All right, welcome back from our brief recess. I believe our next item is the consent agenda. That's my box.
That the consent agenda items listed for the February 8th, 2023 council meeting be received for information.
Can you move for that, please? Let's get you back in. Councilor Schools, Councilor Bailey. Any items they want removed from that? Councilor, sorry, should look this way first. All right, Councilor Goida.
Yes, I would like to remove item 6.12.
612,
Sorry, yes.
612, sorry.
6.12, yeah.
Then also Councilor Suppose.
Also same one, 612.
Okay, the rest are fine. You can receive the remainder of those in this white box. All in favor? Carried. Okay, Councilor Goida, since you asked first.
Okay, I wanted to pull this one out, mostly just to clarify a couple of items that are being questioned in the letter that has been sent to council. I spoke yesterday with our Director of Parks, about two separate things as it relates to the park. The first part of the discussion was in regards to the accessibility of the work to the playground and the shade structure that's scheduled to take place. And the second part was whether that work in any way inhibits the township's ability to do future work at the park should the council wish to do so. And I found that discussion to be really quite helpful and informative. And I was hoping through you, Mr. Mayor, that Mr. Fowler could briefly speak on those two matters.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Councilor Goida. So after review, once it was first brought to my attention about the concerns of the residents, it was inspected. Plans were reviewed as far as construction, and moving forward, it would be my recommendation that council continue with the upgrade of Borum Park. The incidences identified also could be addressed if they become more of a concern in the future, both through in-house and work that could be done through a contractor. But again, the dangers of the ditches that have been identified, there are mitigation measures that we can use, whether it be fencing or a bridge or culvert installation that would access the green space to the north. And again, it would be my recommendation that council continue to move forward with the upgrade of Borum Park.
Can I interject quickly, Councilor Goida?
Yes.
I would question you, Mr. Fowler, on the terminology dangers. Would it be more appropriate to call them concerns? Because inherently, you know, a drainage ditch has an angle associated with it. I personally would not associate that with a danger, but just maybe you could comment on that. What are your thoughts?
Yes, you're absolutely right, Mr. Mayor. My apologies. I was just actually referring to the actual email that was sent as it was referred to. In my opinion, upon review, the actual ditches that are in Borum Park are comparable in size and depth to the actual ditches that are on the front lawns of the residents of Borum Drive. So there is not a severe discrepancy between whether it be the slope or the depths of the ditches identified.
Thank you, Councilor Goida.
Yeah, sorry, Mr. Fowler, can you just also, we spoke about the actual playground structure itself and the accessibility of that. Can you just briefly touch on that as well?
Yes, absolutely. The initial design of the new playground structure and shade structure will all be ADOA compliant with the 2023 requirements. That will be meaning that a full, we'll say, hard surface path from Borum Drive to the play structure will be in place, along with rubber matting that will meet current, disability needs.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just wanted to bring that out just to clear the air a little bit, because about the work that is actually being done in the park and maybe some of the misconceptions that we're hearing. I mean, this is a project that I, as you all know, am very excited about and continue to be very excited about. And moving ahead with this does not hinder our ability to do future works in other areas of the park in the future. So I hope that helps to address Mr. Bruce Taylor's concern. And again, I'm really looking forward to see it all come to life. So.
Thank you, Councilor Spillis.
Yes, I was intrigued by the mention of the grants that are available for improving accessibility to various facilities. So I would like to suggest that as part of the reporting back on the costing as part of the 2024 budget, you include the researching and trying to find dollars for through the various funding agencies if we can get some of that work paid for.
Other comments from? I have a comment or a question of staff. This seems familiar. Have these questions been posed already to staff and council about the AODA, and how many times have we received, if it's been more than once, do you recall how many times we've received a similar question?
Yeah, it's been at least once, I can't recall offhand if it's been more than once, but I do recall receiving these questions in the past and provided responses in the past. Okay,
so if we, what's the process if we receive the identical question or concern to council again, a third time about this AODA? Is there anything we can do that don't necessarily need to address it every time it's sent to the councillors?
I believe we can simply say that, those questions have been addressed already, and here's the dates of the response provided. We can try that for future. That's why I think I know there's something in our bylaw.
Yes, through Mr. Chair, in our procedural bylaw, we can address it as it relates to being an item on the agenda if it's already been addressed.
Perfect. And last comment, Mr. Fowler, the design of that drainage ditch, is it very linear in the sense that it's a straight shot from whatever lands it's servicing to Borum, or what's the layout of that ditch? And again, for the public record, any concerns with putting the buried pipe in there?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, there is not a linear design to the ditch or drainage system. There are several 90 degrees that are required for the water to run from the northwest to the southeast along Borum Drive to bury pipes with that type of degrees would require obviously manhole installations that would make the pipes accessible in case of any type of blockage or backup.
Okay, so could that response be included if we get future inquiries into the challenges with burying the pipe? I feel that's good information to have out there. Okay, any further comments to my comments?
I just want to be clear that when you come back in the fall with the budget considerations, it's not providing a pipe throughout, it's to provide adequate access to a particular section of the park for the playground or whatever we deem appropriate. I think the other part is very prohibitive. I agree with you. I'm not into putting manholes in and having clean outs in and all that stuff. There's got to be a prescribed area, and as we're someplace in correspondence that we do have, it is AODA compliant in the sense that it has that access through it. So it's not entire piece. It's to make more accessible, not entirely accessible.
Makes sense. Thank you. Okay. We can just receive that for information. Can you get a seconder for that, please? Might as well, Councilor Spillis. All right, all in favor? Carried. All right, where's my agenda? Just give me one moment. I believe we're on finance. Report Finance 2023 completed capital projects, and that's Ms. Hassan. There she is. Welcome.
Thank you. So this is just an annual report that we provide to council just as it relates to our completed capital projects and the status of how budgeted projects have progressed as of December 31st, 2022. And I'd welcome any questions from council.
Can we get you to read the resolution, please?
That report FIN 2023-003 entitled 2022 completed capital projects be received for information.
I get a mover, please. Councillor Hurst, seconded by Councillor Bailey. All right, questions or comments? Councillor, anybody? Nope. Okay. All in favor? Carried. Right. 9.2.2, Ms. Hassan.
So this is another report that we typically provide as part of our budget meeting, just as it relates to our balances in our discretionary and restricted reserves as of December 31st, 2022, and in the forecast period based on the 2023 proposed capital budget and forecast. I'd welcome any questions from council.
That report FIN 2023-004 entitled Balances and Discretionary Restricted Reserves be received for information.
Mover, please, Councilor Spillis, seconded by Councilor Hurst. All right, questions, comments? All in favor? Carried. Great. Still on finance, Ms. Hassan.
So this report regarding Ontario Regulation 28409 is just to provide council with the 2023 budget in a PSAP compliant format as required by the public sector accounting standards and Ontario Regulation 28409. I'd welcome any questions from council.
That report FIN 2023-005 entitled Ontario Regulation 284-09 2023 budget be received, and the council adopts report FIN 2023-005, which meets the requirements of Ontario Regulation 284-09 and outlines the preparation of the 2023 operating and capital budgets to a public sector accounting board compliant format.
All right, we have a mover for that, Councilor Bailey, seconded by Councilor Hurst. Comments? Favor? Carried. All right, 9.2.4, Ms. Hassan.
So this is our final budget report. As we all know, it's been a very reiterative process in terms of the number of council meetings that we've had to discuss the budget. We had a public information meeting on January 25th, 2023 to discuss the budget as well. The information in the report is consistent to what was presented in terms of the financial implications presented at the public information meeting. I'd welcome any questions from council and if Mayor Sealy wants to speak about anything specific.
Oh, thank you. Resolution, please.
Yes, that report FIN 2023-006 entitled 2023 budget final be received, and the council give 3 readings to bylaw 2023-009 being a bylaw to adopt the budget for the corporation of the township of Pleasant for the year 2023.
Give them over, please. Councilor Spillis, seconded by Councilor Hurst. Questions or comments? Mr. Bailey?
Thanks. I don't have any questions about the budget, but I was happy to note the increase in the online participation. Looks like it went from 13 to 35 people last year. Hopefully that engagement will continue. One of the notes, I think it was in regards to question 4. What we found from the engagement is that close to 50% of the residents don't have a good understanding of how the tax dollars are used. And so I was wondering if there was a way we can include a short video or put something out explaining how tax dollars and property value work. And I do know after attending the Growth Conference, it's a really great emo video that they have. And I was just gonna see if the staff wanted to look at that and see if that's appropriate to add. Let's see.
Sure.
So you want a video about tax on the website?
Great, easy little understanding of how property value impacts.
Are you volunteering to be the actor or the front face? I feel that if you bring it up, that's just kind of your responsibility.
The video speaks for itself.
Don't you dare recommend that I have to do it. Okay. I like
It seemed
it.
like he wanted, you think, just want to link to the animal second thing.
Yeah, just a link to the one. I think.
Yeah.
I saw it.
Yeah, I
It's pretty good, easy basic.
Councilor Hurst?
2 points very briefly, just as a new counselor, Mrs. San and staff, I really appreciate the level of detail, professionalism, timeliness of the financial reports. It's something that's going through this process the first time with the number of more experienced counselors in the area that have done this before. I very much appreciate it. Well, from my standpoint, I think the review process was quite see most of my perspective, and most of my experience in the door, this is that things working with the board to take financials from, draft through the final. Just a comment of appreciation for the detail and the clarity that was provided. So thank you. And my second comment is the newsletter of the tax bill that came out this week. I thought just a comment to staff. Well done on that one as well. I thought it was finally had a lot of really good information that all taxpayers, I think, benefit from. So just a comment, all part of the budget process, but it's been quite I've been very appreciative of all the time and effort. Thank you.
Great comments, Councillor Hurst. Councillor, go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Great comments by both Councillor Bailey and Councillor Hurst. I echo those comments, and I just want to give my appreciation to all of staff, council, and the public for taking the time to spend on this budget. I think it's a good budget in what are somewhat difficult times, and it's been a very smooth process all along. So thanks to everyone.
Yes, I echo the appreciation that the previous councils expressed to staff. Very well done job. The only question I have is for the future. With respect to growth numbers, is there a way that we can at least try to predict the growth numbers early on in the process? In other words, to try to understand what the numbers are. Right now, we get all the information sort of at the last minute, and there's a big relief on everybody's mind. Whereas if we had the numbers earlier, we wouldn't be looking at, let's cut this out, cut that out, not have those minutiae discussions on whether or not we should cut a trip to here or a trip to there to try to reduce the numbers. It's important that we look at the big picture. We have the big numbers, and then once we have the big numbers and we know what the problem is, and we can attack it rather than the other way around. Without knowing what the problem is, your automatic instinct is, okay, let's start cutting until we get the actual numbers, and that's a relief.
I'm going to speak to that first. I asked county treasury staff about the growth numbers, and it's my understanding they become available preliminarily either end of October, start of November, or end of November, start of December. But they are preliminary numbers. They may vary slightly. So I guess council should have the discussion today is, are they comfortable receiving those numbers and council taking on the risk that those growth numbers would adjust slightly because they have to be confirmed, for lack of a better word, with the province. So there may be a slight deviation. For me personally, I feel I'd like to see those numbers and at least have an asterisk beside it to say, these numbers may change slightly once approved or confirmed by impact or whoever it is. And then I agree, then, not that we're not trying to be fiscally responsible. We just may not look at service cuts or something drastic because we have at least an idea of what that growth number would be. So maybe staff can speak to that component. Mr. CIA.
Sure. As council is aware, what we do after budget is completed into a budget review, or budget process review with you. What we do, we've noted those comments, and we'll have a discussion with our director of finance to see what we can do to, like you indicated, aspects of this is a preliminary number, and it's not for the whole year yet, because even if we get the numbers in October, November, it doesn't have the November, December numbers in there, right? So it would be a projection, but yeah, we'll note that. And maybe if you want to raise that as a comment or a question, when we give you the budget review, the budget process review questions, then know that. And then when we bring information back, we'll make sure to address that. See, fair comment. It's a good question. How would we give you better information or more information to try and come up with the decision to make? So we'll note that, and we'll see if there's something that we can do.
Mr. CEO, I did provide those comments in the previous questions. They're all in there.
We'll try to do before. Yes, because on a high level, it could be the direction the council takes. It's either, oh man, we have zero growth, or in a real bad year, or you're at a 3% growth rate. Well, you can sit back and relax slightly. So I think that's important. But we look forward to that report. Councilor Bailey?
Can I just add? clarification question. When we're asking about projected growth numbers, are we talking about residential only? Are we talking about industrial, commercial? What is
Total.
it's total? So can we not just look at completed building permits data and have a best guess fairly accurately, or what would that be based on?
I can give a preliminary indication, if Mrs. Sandy, you can jump in if I'm saying something wrong here, but I can give a preliminary indication, but the actual growth numbers themselves are what we get through MPAC. And there's a bit of a delay from when we issue the permit until MPAC does the assessment, and then it's the roll and all that kind of stuff. But,
Yeah.
there is a delay.
So, yeah, so typically what we provide council is the median impact analysis, and that relates to what was the roll return as of January 1st, 2022, and what was the roll return as of January 1st, 2023. But we can provide the percentage growth, but again, that is preliminary, and that could be a percentage that we could provide to council as part of future budget reports after we get those numbers from the County of Wellington. But we could indicate that it is preliminary, and obviously we wouldn't do the median impacts until we get the final roll return.
So what happens is when you build new homes, it could take a year or maybe less, but before they show up on your roll and you have the impact. But what we capture more regularly is for those terms, supplemental growth and omitted or something. There's a couple of terminologies there. So some of that is essentially reassessment. So two of them, Broccolini property and Royal Canal, they were reassessed. So that's easily captured because they're already in the roll. We'll see those numbers, but then the new homes maybe come in at a later time, but at least they'll give us a starting point.
Yeah. So, Mary, this is a follow-up question. In the report, there was a change in the residential 2022 to 2023. So we had 605,000 versus 610. Is that where you put in that little bit of growth to accommodate?
Yeah, so the growth is accommodated in there, but there's also further. So as the mayor was indicating, there's also further items that are accommodated in there, like typically all of our properties have a bit of assessment growth each year just based on MPAC's assessment methodologies. The last couple of years, the last few years since COVID, the province has postponed the reassessment cycle. So we're not seeing that assessment growth. But as the mayor alluded to, basically if a property has like a renovation or whatnot, MPAC has up to 3 years to go and assess that property. So there's usually delays in that sense. And I guess my point is that the median typical analysis that we provide can be provided in January, similar to previous years, but we can also provide earlier on to let you guys know what the projected growth was as of. So if we're looking at next year, we could provide it as of January 1st, 2023 to say end of November, that this is what MPAC has said our growth is going to be. The county does some analysis around that, and I can provide you with that percentage, but it's just preliminary, right? And then once we get the roll return, we'll have more accurate figures.
Okay. I want to thank staff for the budget process. I feel it's forever ingrained in, and maybe Councillor Spools and Councillor Bailey felt this when they came on. But when Councillor Gordon and I first came on, it was a lot, and we were, I don't want to say we were struggling, but it was a lot, and that's forever burned in my brain. And you know, and I'm not knocking you, Ms. Hassan. We're just saying that it was a very lengthy budget process, and with yourself and the CAO and the rest of the staff, we've been able to streamline it and focus the decision making on things that we really can make decisions on. And it feels like it's easier because maybe we've been around the block a few times, but it's a great process so far, and less stressful for council. And I believe that's the goal of the growth numbers as well, getting them preliminarily, because we just know the direction we're at. So great budget. I'm very supportive of it. I still feel, and no fault to staff, that people focus on the 4.5% versus that it's $48 over the year. And we're doing a good job. We're putting out that information, but I mean, some of the online engagement is that, you know, we should be cutting services and, you know, these, it seem like extreme measures for $48 where we're going to be able to provide a little bit, what's the proper word? Maybe a little higher service level for our gravel roads because we added an employee. We're going to be able to provide, you know, a little bit more summer maintenance in our parks. And then along with the inflationary pressures that we've all seen for $48 per house, that's a lot of bang for your buck. So, you know, there's some criticism out there about adding staff and adding this and adding that, but the reality is everybody here at this table and in the office does a great job of getting great bang for the buck. So I appreciate it. And I'm very supportive of this budget. Looking forward to all the projects we have, you know, either starting or coming to completion in 23. Thank you so much. Any other comments after I'm done with that one?
Good speech.
Thanks, boss. All right, the other resolution, do we already have them ready? All right, so all in favor of the 2023 budget? Carried. Well, hopefully a bit of your workload is now complete, Mrs. Sand.
Oh, I wish.
Yeah. All right, so now we're on to 9.2.5. Oh, you're still on the hot seat. Mrs. Sand.
Yes, so this is our Shop Local Plus Lunch Gift Certificate program that we launched in 2020 in partnership with Wellington Waterloo Community Futures. The initial intent of the program was to help support local Plus Lunch businesses due to the impacts of COVID-19 on those local businesses. It was an excellent initiative to support and provide good benefit for our local businesses during a very difficult time. But it appears that it has run its course at the township due to its underutilization as described in the report. And it is consistent with our other municipal partners who implemented at similar times to us, who are also looking to conclude this program as well. Mr. Schwendinger, if I missed anything, just let me know, or you can just add to this, but that's just my quick summary of the report.
Sure, yeah, thank you. Have had discussions with our municipalities as well to see what they're doing. As I mentioned in the report, there's a few of them that are on the same program. I think our report indicates they too are including the use of the program, and they're looking for initiatives that they can implement, and some are trying a few things as well to support their local businesses. So I'm trying to get some more information on those so that we can bring those to you for future consideration as well. If there's something that we can do for local businesses to continue to help out. But this was a measure to help during some unprecedented times. And I forget the total offhand, but I think it was like $4,700 that was spent on local businesses that wouldn't have spent otherwise, which is a good thing. So it ran its course, and we'll see if there's other things that we can report to council for consideration for future support too.
Okay. Can we have you read the resolution, Ms. Whitebox?
Certainly. The report FIN 2023-007 entitled Shop Local Plus Lunch Gift Certificate Program be received, and that council directs staff to discontinue the program effective April 1st, 2023 due to the program's underutilization.
Need a mover for that, please? Councilor Spillis, second by Councilor Goida. Any questions or comments for staff or? Councilor Goida?
Sorry, go ahead.
Did you have one, Councilor?
Yeah, I did. Go ahead. Actually, I think that the concept of supporting local businesses is really important. And I guess hearing Glenn's comments, I think that's really long term, and that municipalities support local businesses and very much encourage what a version 2 of support local business may look like in the future. That this, you know, the timing of this would be sunsetting realistically, but longer term, always taking an eye on how we can support local businesses.
Great. Councilor Goida?
Yeah, I just, I'm obviously sad to see this initiative come to an end, but I'm glad to see that it did provide some assistance to local businesses. So in my eyes, that is a success. And I'm very thankful to everyone who made use of the program. I was hoping that we could maybe do two things. One was Wellington Waterloo Community Futures, without them partnering with us on it, we wouldn't have been able to run the program. So I was wondering if we could write them like a thank you letter on behalf of council, with council support, and also to just, I know that there is some things in the works with the Economic Development Committee and hopefully getting them to present here, but just to sort of formally reach out to the Economic Development Committee to see if there are any programs taking place now or that are perhaps in the works to be coming up that we could partner and participate with them on that as well. So I am not sure if that needs a separate motion or if that can just.
Sorry, so for the economic development components, anybody have any comments on that, or how do you want, sorry, how do you want to proceed with that part of it? The first one's easy, is we write the letter.
Yeah.
Sorry. Mr. CEO.
Further to the decision that council made for your goals and objectives, you asked for county council economic development to come in and present on a regular basis. In the process of getting that scheduled with them, what I can ask them to do as well is to bring information along or provide ideas or suggestions specifically geared towards support of local business. I can ask that they focus on that and they can make their presentations. Yeah, we can easily incorporate that.
Just sounds.
Yeah, that would be great.
For the writing a letter, do we need to amend the resolution for that, or can we just proceed as directed?
I do have it, Mr. Chair, included, just drafted quickly. And then I've also included the request to the committee as well, if that's helpful, or I can remove that if Mr. CAO has it.
Jesus captured. Okay, so that was, do we have a mover for that? It was Councillor Spillis and Goyda. You guys are comfortable with the special amendments, yeah? Great comments, Councillor Goyda. Daly.
Just in follow up, sort of two thoughts. Right now we have a space on the website where residents can click and go see these different local businesses. Is there a way we can kind of keep that directory live so that as a resource for people, it doesn't have to link to any gift card program, but anyway, just the thoughts. And I'm wondering about the timing of it. If economic development's if they have some sort of program in place that we're going to be able to tap into, maybe we keep something live and transition over to it instead of shutting down completely and then having to bring something back up later. So I'm just trying to, I don't know, just some thoughts.
Let me have the discussion with the county staff about that specifically and see the easiest transition and the best way to accomplish that. Because yeah, I agree that the less bumps we have in the road, the smoother it will be for everybody, right? So I'll see what we can work out.
So then the resolution, it's specified the date, that's April. Sorry, the resolution, April 1st. So is there any value in taking that date out? If economic development comes back with oh yeah, on May 1st, we're gonna launch something.
I want to commit to a date that others are going to do stuff, but I can't really confirm with them that they're able to do it for us yet. So,
Fair enough.
you know,
It'll be tough to build a new business support program once it's already up and running, which I'm not aware, but I think, would you be comfortable leaving it with the CAO to determine whether we leave the site up or it's time to sunset it?
yeah, okay.
Further comments? Okay, you captured it. Okay, all in favor? Carried. 9.3.2. Miss White Fox. Not fair, they don't have a giant audience.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. So this report is a status update and it's being provided on the Badger daylighting zoning bylaw amendment. So we had their public information meeting November 30th of last year. So just looking to bring this back to the public and council's attention, because it has been a period of time since we did have the public meeting. This report aims to just give council an update on where we are at with the process and when council can expect to see that planning recommendation report come to council for decision. So we have established some timelines with the applicant to have information provided to staff based on the public comments and additional peer review that we've had done based on the feedback from the public. And so that date is February 17th. which would enable county planning staff and township staff to review and put together a planning recommendation report to council for one of our March meetings. So this report, again, just looks to give those details. It also talks a little bit about some site conditions on the property that staff have become aware of, as well as provides you with the XCG environmental peer review that was initiated based on the public feedback from the public meeting, as well as a memo from our county planning staff, which talks about just a summary of the outstanding issues that we're looking to get feedback from the applicant on in order to bring this report to you in March.
Like reading the resolution still?
That report ADM 2023-006 entitled Badger Daylighting Zoning Bylaw Amendment Application Status Update be received. And the council directs staff to forward the report and schedules to the property owner and agent for response, and that the response be included in the planning recommendation report to be considered by council at a March 2023 council meeting. And the council directs staff to forward this report and schedules to the local Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks office for comment.
Question, instead of to their office, is it to, do we have a rep? Is that the same difference?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, the local rep that we have at the local office. Yeah.
All right, I'll go move for that, please. Councilor Spillis, seconded by Councilor Hurst. Comments, Councilor Bailey?
Yeah, I had a comment, reporting, this on to the ministry, can we make them aware of the date of the follow-up meeting of March 23rd, so that we have their comments before that date?
Yeah.
We can ask.
We can ask, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think I'm fine. I have some concerns with some other stuff, but I think it'll come up. That's good.
Councilor Hurst?
Still looking forward to the February 17th. Or I think that's where this will come to the.
Yeah. Councilor Goida?
Yeah, I don't have any additional questions.
Councilor Spillis?
No, Councilor Bailey picked up the item I was going to ask as well, and I agree with Councilor Hurst that the next public meeting is going to be the watershed.
Yep. Unintended. All right, all in favor? Carried. All right, 9.3.3. This is Ms. Whitebox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report is relating to a request from the developer for specific lots within Hawkfront Phase 2 condominium. So that this report was published, the request for the revision to the condominium actually has been withdrawn from the developer. So they're not looking to move forward with consolidating lots 9 and 10 at this time. However, staff are still looking, should council wish to direct us on just general direction if we are to receive revisions to condo or subdivision agreements in the future. Because there may not be a required planning process associated with those revisions, just dependent on what the condominium act says about exemptions. There isn't a formal planning process that staff can follow necessarily for revisions. So we're looking for some direction from council when we do receive these types of requests, that our process be to report to council with that information to receive your feedback and direction.
I can maybe elaborate on that a bit. So an analogy would be when we had the University of Guelph operations for aggregate down in second concession. They went to the ministry and asked for a minor revision of their site plan and removed all those trees. And then when they asked for permission to go into that area is when we finally heard about it. So I feel that staff, what they're saying is that we go through a process with, so back to the aggregate is we put the word out that we want to hear about these minor applications ahead of time, not post decision. Similar here is there isn't a real planning direction for staff, but I feel that if something has been approved and gone through the public meeting process and council has put their opinion behind that, and then something were to change without it being our knowledge, staff isn't quite comfortable with that. So I feel they're basically saying to us, they want to bring it to us and hoping that we would be supportive of that position, that if something changes from when it was proposed and through the public process, that here's this council support of them bringing these to our attention. Do we read the resolution?
Not yet. I'm still kind of capturing whatever direction we're, that's what we're doing.
Let's just get on the table first.
That report ADM 2023-007 entitled Foxfront Phase 2 Condominium Plan Revision be received. And whereas the request to revise the condominium plan has been withdrawn, that council directs staff to bring forward an information report if and when revisions to condominium or subdivision plans are made in the future.
Okay, move to that, please. Councillor Hurst, second one, Councillor Swollenstein. Councillor Bailey.
I think that's great direction. I'm kind of shocked or surprised that there is no planning direction when you've gone through some sort of public process. And then a change happens, I feel like it should be the process back in place, recycle back. But anyway, so also we're bringing in.
Councillor Hurst. Councillor Swollenstein.
I guess the issue here is, do we allow staff to do the peer review and then come back with a final decision, or we do a two-step like this? I'm inclined to let staff get a peer review done and then come back with a final outcome and recommendation, and then we make the decision on that basis.
Do you want to comment on that? Either of you, Mr. CEO?
I find that that's a good way to do it, because staff will know, or staff will have a good idea of what the potential implications of a proposed change are. We're not going to go and ask every consultant to complete peer review rate from scratch again if what's being proposed isn't going to be a significant change. So you might say, well, let's have this one and this one done, the other will be okay, and then we'll bring that back to you for information. So I think that's a good way to do it, is the one step process, and it's better use of your time.
It's better use of staff's time too.
Yeah.
You don't see your head nods? Any further comments? Do we need to have Ms. White Fox reread that? Councilor Willis mentioned it. Okay, all in favor? Carried. Sorry, I thought you were out, so I didn't.
Oh, sorry, I don't know why. Sorry, I'm not voting. I retract that vote.
She was scratching her head.
Yes.
All right, 9.3.4. So you Ms. White Fox.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This report is an annual report that's statutory for the municipality to prepare, along with the reports that we sent to the various agencies outlined in the report. It's required because we have a drinking water system, within the township. So this report addresses the water sampling that's taken place over the previous year and reports on any exceedances, should there be any. In this case, for the year 2022, there were no exceedances, and that's outlined in the schedule. So the recommendation in the report is that report ADM 2023-008 regarding the 2022 annual water report, drinking water system number 2600210034 be received, and that the 2022 annual water report be submitted to the ministry and the applicable agencies as outlined within the report.
Can you move that, please? Councillor Bailey, seconded by Councillor Hurst. Comments, questions, anybody? Good, all in favor? Carried. 9.4.1, Ms. White Fox.
No, I do have Ms. Banks here as well. If I could move her over, she also helped prepare this report.
I don't think we're going to do a lot of discussion on that. Just, we'll see. Sure.
That report PD 2023-001 entitled zoning bylaw amendment application, file number D14/WEL be received, and that council deem the application to be complete for the purpose of proceeding to the statutory public meeting. And that council authorize the holding of a statutory public meeting on Wednesday, March 8th, 2023 at 7 p.m. in the Sunshine Community Center.
Need to move it along, please. Councillor Goyda, second by Councillor Willis. Questions, comments? Councillor Bailey.
think my comments are appropriate at this time. I'm still figuring out the process and how this is going, but, so I support deeming the application complete. I don't have any, concerns with that. A couple, comments that I noted in the report. I was happy to see the post-lunch design guidelines were referenced, in the report. And I don't know if any of you had time or if anyone's looked at it, but it's, you know, it's a reference for the design guidelines, and this property is along one of the sections in there. And it helps set the vision for what we want to see in the Aberfoyle area. Three broad principles that guide the document are enhancing the streetscape, promoting quality development such as architectural designs, and finally respecting the established character of Woodland. There's guidelines around tree planting and landscape features. Also guidelines that discuss ways to orient the building and have office components facing the highway, which has been proposed. So where I'm going with these comments is that I'd like there to be some discussion around the potential for maybe diversifying the project through retail or commercial opportunities. I don't know if that's appropriate or where that comes in, but since it's in the guidelines, it could come up in some of the site plan application components of it. If we can make sure there's language from this document implemented in there and any opportunities, it would be good to have that discussion.
I'll maybe ask staff, when would be the most appropriate time in the process for us to, if we had concerns or about a proposal? Similar to that, whether it fits the design guideline. I don't necessarily like being reactive. Sometimes it's nice to be proactive, but what are your thoughts on the most appropriate time for those comments?
Through you, Mr. Chair. So at this point, we're deeming it complete. So there will be a full circulation and review of the application that happens once, and if it seems complete by all township staff and township consultant, then proceeds to, within that time frame, it goes to public meeting. It will also go to our PDAC committee for comment, and then it will be back to council at another date for as many reviews within the time frame that you feel are necessary. So we could bring in once, we could bring it twice, we could bring it once with the bylaw. It just depends on the reviews that you're looking to have. So there's going to be multiple opportunities for consultation as we work through the process.
I wasn't trying to squish it, but
And that's where I'm struggling with where those conversations would happen. And I'm thinking it was 2 years ago, you know, like where, or, you know, like in the past, if this is a vision that we have for this area, someone's proposing something, at what point can we say, well, that's great, let's try to implement some of the suggestions that are already in a document where we can have a walkable, livable, you know, stretch of.
that's going forward. I would say after the public meeting, because typically at the public meeting, we're there to observe. We don't necessarily engage, but then that's the as close to the final proposal as likely the proponent wants, and then
Late in my.
that's what I'm worried about as well.
Yeah.
Is it too late by then? It's fine.
Mr. Chair, so we can take away some of these comments that are specific to the Footpunch design guidelines. Our county planning staff are responsible for looking at that part of the consultation piece, and we can talk a little bit further with them internally and look at that guideline and just make sure some of those comments that Councilor Bailey has made are reviewed and looked at through a review process.
I also had another comment. Debating the thing. At our last meeting, we had a fan that come from Conservation Hall, and he talked about smart technology, and there is a recommendation in this report to install flow meters as a measure. And I just, you know, again, when the opportunity would present itself to talk about any other innovative technologies that would be helpful, where we can be collecting data on this property, but maybe in that area, which could ultimately like help the township out or be useful on a bigger scale. So I'm seeing it as an opportunity. If they're already going to put in some sort of, you know, flow meter technology, maybe we could be engaging with some of the smart technology that sounds really cool that that you brought up. Again, there we go.
Maybe as part of the review process, when we're approaching the public public meetings, we can have a conversation with our hydrologist, for example, and say that, you know, if we could get some data like this, would this be helpful for the overall snapshot that you're taking of the whole municipality? And if there is, then at that point, we could ask the proponent, if you're putting this in, we would like to add it to this or get this. Right, because that's not really going to change his design or his concept. Sometimes we need to tell him right now, it's just who has access to the data he's collecting or what data is he going to be collecting. So how will we review that with our hydrogeologist, and then we could bring forward some type of recommendation at the time that this was. Because my thoughts, does that make sense?
Councilor Hurst.
Yeah, I think I'm relatively new to the process, but I think my take on it today is that we're going through settlement, maybe my larger vision for industrial land development would be dump parking lots in an industrial area, and something that's been higher value and adds value to the community as opposed to a truck. My thoughts on it. I think for today's purpose, we've heard it, we go through the process. And I think Council made some good comments. I think for me, I have to admit I'm still learning the appropriate person to understand what goes through here. But I think it's important just to reemphasize the larger vision of what industrial development is like. That portion of the township and what our vision is, because this is a high degree of growth frontage here. What's the impact?
Councilor, go ahead.
Yeah, great comment so far. I really only have one question, and it's to do with this noise study. And I know that it wasn't originally requested as part of the pre-consultation. And it seems like due to some additional information, it is now being recommended. And I was just wondering, again, I guess this is a process and not exactly knowing what components fit in where, but is that something that maybe staff would recommend that we have available prior to the public meeting? It seems like something that is important enough to the surrounding public that they would want to see that before being able to make comment on it. But procedurally, I'm not sure if there's another opportunity when site plan control comes along for them to make comment on that, or if by then it's too late. Like I don't really I'm trying to reconcile where the appropriate place for certain things is.
Through you, Mr. Chair. Agreed. So we could look at the date of Wednesday, March 8th. We do have another opportunity, I believe, with another council meeting on the 22nd of March. We do have to be cognizant of the timelines that are in place to actually deem these completed. The Planning Act has now shortened that amount of time for it. I would also like to mention that this application came prior to our mandatory pre-consultation bylaw with what sets out in that bylaw. I think going forward is going to produce these types of items getting identified and flagged earlier on through the pre-consultation process. So hopefully that improves it for both the township and the applicant going forward. But I would say as a suggestion, because I think that does make sense, particularly with the noise. If we were to move out the public meeting date to March 22nd, I believe we'd still be within our timelines and we could have that noise study at least provided, whether it's peer reviewed or not, maybe tight, but we could at least have that for the public.
Yeah, I have no kind of understanding of how long something like that takes to complete. So if that's something that you think is doable on the applicant's part, you know, given the delegation we heard today about noise, I think that's pretty relevant. I think people would want to be able to understand that a little bit better.
Right, I just want to write this down for it. Okay.
That's it.
Councilor Spose.
Yes, I share Councilor Gordon's concern with respect to noise, especially the people living on Gilmore and the Aberfoyle Mills area. Noise is one of the issues that a lot of people have concerns about. And it'd be appropriate to have that report ready for the public meeting so that the residents can, of those areas can hear it out. Just a question of staff with respect to Aberfoyle Mills. Are you notifying them as part of a process for the public meeting?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I might defer to our development coordinator, just to make a comment on our buffer area that we notified within 120 meters. That captured that subdivision.
Yes, Ms. Hoyt Fox is correct. It would be 120-meter buffer, and I can also ensure that the residents at Aberfoyle Mills can be notified also if they're outside that 120-meter buffer.
I think it's important because they're the biggest community there. The second point is the Hardin letter of January 26th mentions 3 recommendations on action required. One with respect to existing water well, another one with respect to on-site recharge, and a third area with respect to septic system. Do we know if the proponent has addressed that or will address these as part of the public meeting?
Certainly. No, go ahead, Ms. Hoyt Fox.
So sorry, just a clarification question, Councilor Sablood, just specifically around the estimated wastewater flows. We're looking for them to provide more information.
Well, there's 3 elements that the our hydrogeologist has said should be looked at. One is the existing 12-inch water well, which they're saying that they should be either just decommissioned or retrofitted. On-site recharge. In other words, what are we going to do with the water? And the second one is a water balance associated with the septic system. So he pointed those out. I don't know if it's something that came to him already and he's going to look after it or not.
Swimming in the parking lot, Mill Creek.
So through you, Mr. Chair, typically, if the township consultants raise certain concerns such as these that our hydrogeologist has, we would be looking for the applicant to satisfy those through the submission process once we have the application complete in a lot of cases. So if the study was provided, but we're noticing there's some challenges or concerns with what has been reported, we'll look for those to be addressed through our formal submission process, and that may take 2 or 3 submissions to satisfy our consultants. So that information would be provided. It's hard to say whether the first submission will satisfy our hydrogeologist and whether that would be in time for public meeting, but we certainly should have more information on that.
Okay, the last point I want to make is sort of a more administrative. The recommendations says that the council deems the application to be complete. And it goes on to say authorize. I would like to suggest that we reword that to say that based on staff's assessment of the application is deemed complete for the purpose of proceeding to the statutory public meeting, council authorizes the holding of a statutory public meeting. The reason why I say that is council doesn't have boots on the ground. It's a staff who actually look at the reports, and they're the ones who say, council, it's deemed complete for the process of proceeding. I don't have the expertise. I wasn't in part involved with the actual reviewing all the documents, neither have all the other councilors. So I'm suggesting that it being a wording to take the onus on council and saying staff deem it, and on the basis of what staff are saying, it's okay to proceed.
It makes sense. It's awesome.
Yes, through you, Mr. Chair, and to Councilor Spillis, I understood the comment and the suggestion as well. So the Planning Act sets out certain language around council having the authority to deem these complete. Should council wish to delegate that authority to staff, that certainly can be done. But the wording in the legislation is that it is a council decision.
So could you keep the wording as council deems it complete as per the staff recommendation? Something along those lines.
Yes, something like that to take the onus off us and saying.
Shares it at least.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. I think it's important if this goes to the LTD or whatever it is, whatever disputes resolution we have to face, at least we can say, yes, staff told us it's complete and is going forward.
Satisfy you that it's council deems it complete.
Yes.
Staff recommendation.
Yep, through you, Mr. Chair. I think it does. Yeah, I'll leave it with that. Yeah.
Okay, and I'm supportive of what you're suggesting, moving the March 8th date to the March 22nd so that we can have the noise study included as part of that information to the public.
So as busy scribbling away here was that the noise study is for how it's proposed as 15 trucks, I believe, either Councillor Bailey or somebody. But should the noise study take into account the potential of the full property? Because it's, I'm not saying there's any underlying motive from the proponent, but you're building a much greater facility than what your needs are. And as soon as it's complete, that could be transferred to a new owner that could utilize it for much larger operation, and then thus the noise would be more of an impact. So do we have a way to request that it's the full potential of the proposal? Because there's so many more parking spaces and stuff.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think we've heard that feedback and we heard it from the delegate today with the questions that were asked. So we can certainly take that away and discuss it when we do request the noise study, just to make sure the scope is correct and accurately reflects what the development is going to be.
Even if it's not proposed, the potential, or not the, but do you see the difference? Like the.
Yes, so I think it's the capacity is there to have a certain number of trucks based on the layout, and so we're looking at what the maximum capacity would be in terms of doing that.
And the other thing, since this is they call it transport, but it's under our zoning bylaw that it's a transport terminal, right? I feel that we need to give staff direction on our desire for more transport terminals within the township. This land, this is my question, could you remind me, what's the zoning currently? It's like business industrial or something.
I believe, Mr. Chair, it's highway commercial with a site specific provision.
So we have limited lands accessible to A county roads that are just designated. And the unfortunate circumstance we find ourselves is that with our proximity to the GTA, we're very attractive for trucking terminals, Councillor Hurst. So I'm going to ask staff, is there a desire to have something from council to give you direction on this? When you sound harsh, but whether we even want more trucking terminals or what our desire is for the limited amount of developable land that we have left.
Through you, Mr. Chair, I think that that's likely a broader discussion as it relates to the zoning uses permitted as a right in the industrial zone. So certainly where you see rezoning requests, council has different ability, different authority over those amendments to the zoning, but where we have land already zoned industrial, transport terminal is by right use if they are permitted. So I think it perhaps may be a discussion rather than direction to staff, but a broader discussion around the uses permitted in some of our zones.
So for me, initially I want to focus on lands where it's not a right. I feel that I'd like council to give a direction or a position on these other lands that no or yay we're interested in even entertaining these reclassifications, because we already have lands within those industrial zones. Because would that be beneficial to staff? So if you see an application, you could point to a policy or a direction from council. Well, this is whereas, you know, we would direct these types of industry to our industrial zone, and we protect our core by our hamlets.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I think that the intent is very clear for staff, for this conversation, but I think where this can become challenging, is that an application can be made regardless under the Planning Act, and so then it becomes more of a legal issue, with the tribunal, should that be appealed. So we can't, restrict Planning Act applications being made regardless of what they're for. Council has the authority to evaluate those and make a decision on them, but preemptively or prematurely denying them isn't something that we have the authority to do under the Planning Act.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to be a hypocrite because I said just previous delegation that we're supposed to see applications. What I was trying to say is to a proponent, we're not necessarily wanting these type of development. I'll leave it with you, and it gives us plenty of opportunity later in the process to weigh in whether we want to change the zoning or not. I was hoping to add just a bit of a layer there that, go ahead, Councilor Whitler.
And the pre-consult portion of the applications, that's, I think, where that conversation could happen just between staff and the applicant is just you're aware, before everyone goes through all the work to get an application complete and then find out that really there isn't a lot of support for it, it would be nice to have that conversation earlier on in the process.
That's where I was trying to lean towards, like, yes, you can bring this forward, but council's opinion is these, in the business district of Aberfoyle and Morriston is not ideal, and we direct it to the industrial. I'm gonna leave it with staff, but I think at some point that may be a more of a conversation. Exactly. So if a proponent comes forward, it's just, here's the challenges you're going to face because we have this in writing, that in writing, but it doesn't preclude you from applying and getting in. It's just a little bit more difficult of a process. Fair enough.
Question of you, Mr. Mayor. You were saying industrial properties. Are you saying you do not want to encourage trucking as well in industrial properties?
Wow. No, I'm more looking at short term, just these other lands that were not designated with that right of use. But ultimately, I personally don't believe that trucking terminals are the highest and best use for our industrial. That's, I think.
Well, I agree with you, Mr. Mayor. I guess what I'd like to understand from staff is what would be the process to get a rezoning done of those industrial lands to exclude trucking or things like construction sites? Like I see a property there on McLean Road, it's full of construction equipment, and it's not the best use from our perspective for encouraging somebody to move in beside it and say, yeah, I got a prestige commercial site.
So through you, Mr. Chair, and Councilor Lewis, maybe just clarification. Your question is how do we, within our current industrial zones, remove the ability for undeveloped sites or where a new use comes in for it not to be trucking or
Correct, yes.
So my understanding would be that the township initiated zoning amendment to our industrial zones to remove those uses from the industrial zone standards, which is appealable by the public. So all of our housekeeping, all of our township initiated zoning amendments would be. So that would be the process, and those would be, the appeal will be part of that process.
Okay, so I'd like to suggest we start with a report on how to do that. And then we can discuss that at a future council meeting.
I would like to discuss that. So hold on a second. We're getting a little bit down the rabbit hole here. That's my fault. But the first one was where we were.
And maybe procedurally, just maybe separating those two out. Maybe you could. So the motion that's on the table now is to receive the report. The council deemed the application complete based on the information provided in the staff report for the purpose of proceeding to a statutory public meeting. The council authorized the holding of a statutory public meeting on Wednesday, March 22nd, 2023. And the council directed staff to notify the subdivision Aberfoyle Meadows of the upcoming public meeting.
So yeah, that moved, right?
Can I suggest instead of saying based on the information contained in the report, based on the advice and information contained in the report?
We have moved in this.
Councillor Goida, moved, Councillor Spillier.
Any further comments on that first?
I have a follow-up question after talking about the noise study. And maybe staff can just clarify, I feel like one of the first meetings I was at, we talked about land use compatibility studies. Is that something that's typically done, hasn't been done, or is it something that needs to be requested, and where in the process would that be addressed?
So to you, Mr. Chair, so generally with planning act application, there's a planning justification report that is always provided and prepared by a planner by the applicant. And so that includes, proper land use planning, compatibility, compliance with policy, provincial, and township level. So that is contained in the planning justification report. I guess I was looking more specifically at residential. Just with identified versus like industrial use, so how that compatibility works, and like there's a study that's. Yes, it should incorporate sensitive adjacent uses, so that should be included in the appropriateness of the site review.
Any further comments? Can we vote? All in favor? Carried. Great. Oh, great. So question on that, would it be best, even though it came out of the discussion, and notice the motion to have staff, or are you fine with just another resolution?
This is part of the discussion that we've already had. You're fine. So
I just find figuring out where the most appropriate spot, so staff's comfortable with being now, so.
Yeah, so my motion will be that request staff to produce a report on amending the industrial zoning to eliminate certain categories such as trucking terminal and construction storage.
If that's there.
It is there.
Is it there? Well, I know the use is there, but I don't know what it's termed.
It's in there. I think that smacks to what Councillor Bailey's saying, that you want compatibility. So I think the sooner we start honing in on what we want, where, the sooner we're going to be able to shape the township to what we think is a vision for us.
Mm-hmm. Let's move. You have a seconder, Councillor Bailey. All right, comments, Councillor Bailey.
Well, I think there is some direction already being given from the official plan, but maybe it's just bringing all that information together and making sure that we're all aware of what's zoned and what's actually, permitted use, and we think about it. So having those discussions, I think, is really good, bringing all that information together.
Councillor Hurst.
I support it. I think this is a medium term, longer term vision for industrial development in the township, and I think it's beneficial long term to encouragement and direction as to what that may look like.
Yeah, I support it as well. I think it's really good that we're looking at this like broad scoped vision. I think that's very, very forward thinking. So I think that's a great idea.
Any last comments, Councillor Spillier?
No, I'm good, thank you.
All in favor? All right, that one's carried. Now to 9.4.2, Ms. Peter. I guess. Oh, sorry, it's presented by, sorry, I read the wrong line. Welcome, Andrew, anytime you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The report you have before you is just the stats of the final quarter of 2022 on building permits and their values. I'd be happy to answer anyone's question if you have any.
We'll read the resolution, please, Ms. Whitefine.
that report, building 2023-001, entitled Building Department Fourth Quarter Update from October to December 2022, be received for information.
All right, can I get a mover for that, please? Councillor Hurst, second by Councillor Spillier. Any comments or questions for Andrew? No? All in favor? Carried. Thank you. All right. I believe we're on to correspondence, right? Ms. White Fox. Want to move that now? All right, well, welcome Sonia and Jose. Can you hear me?
We can.
All right. Who would like to start your presentation for your report? Or not at all?
Jose is our technical speaker. Essentially, if you've had a look at the document, GM Blue Pen put together a report for you on Mini Lakes, to which Aqua had a reply to, and we were asked to attend the meeting in case you had any follow-up questions from it. So the questions that you have would be answered by Jose.
Okay, thank you. So you have a resolution, Ms. White Fox?
The correspondence item 10.1 regarding Mini Lakes 2021 annual wastewater and water monitoring reports and the corresponding peer reviews be received for information.
And move over to that, please. Councilor Spool, seconded by Councilor Hurst. Question or comments for the members here? Bailey?
Yeah, I just a comment, I recognized in the report anyway, glad to see that there's still momentum with the design of the treatment system. And I just hope that we get to see a little more of the recommendations checked off in our next report.
Thank you. Councilor Hurst? Councilor Goya?
No questions.
Councilor Spools?
Yes, I'd like to ask that Mini Lakes, as part of their 2022 annual report, incorporate the comments that their OCW has made and follow up to those. What are they doing? In other words, we have our comments, they've responded, and I think it's important that we see what the progress is or lack of progress. So as part of the report that probably will come in March, but they try to incorporate that as well. And I'd like to suggest that Mini Lakes attend as well, because this is a concern. It's a $6 million price tag on this, and they seem to be trying to scale back and trying to scale back. There's got to be a tipping point when you can't scale back, and they got to bite the bullet and pay for it.
Yeah. Okay. I think you said 2022 report.
It would be a 2022 report in 2043.
Yeah. Okay. The mover and second are comfortable with that? Himself and Mr. Hurst. Any comments on that? Okay, I'm comfortable with that. All in favor? Ms. Carey. Great. I'll get you. Wait till you able to remove that. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, our next item is 10.2, the CBM aggregates Roswell pit. I'll have Ms. White Fox read the resolution, please.
The correspondence item 10.2 regarding CBM aggregates Roselle Pit. 2022 ecological and aquatic monitoring report and peer review be received for information.
Okay, mover for that, please. Councilor Goyda, second by Councilor Spillis. Any questions or comments? Spillis? That's a card. Oh, I browsed that way, but they didn't.
Yeah, I did. I just wanted to make note that the Food and Associates report that we just got for 2022. Anyway, I recognize that over 16 of the issues in this report are exactly the same as the comments in the January 2022 report. So 1 year later, and there appears to be very little change or action made by the operator. I'm curious if we can outline or have it pointed out if there's been any action items that have been implemented since last January. And I have a note here that there's been no response by TBM or the minister regarding the cease request. We've had that 2 times over the last few years. There was an action item. GRCA recommends that the 2022 groundwater monitoring report should be circulated to GRCA for comment once available. I don't know if that's the role of staff to be forwarding that on, and just want to make sure that that happens. And then a Food and Associates report had asked for a thorough analysis of the data and a comprehensive discussion of the results to explain their conclusion. And I'm not sure in that can also be helped. And I guess just final comment, I think something that we in council should take away from this particular situation is the need for the automatic opposition for this zoning application. I think Councilor Ballmer has brought this up in the past. That what we can take away from this situation is just what we can help prevent in the future. So I just wanted to ask staff to verify what our practice is for any extraction zoning application and what practice happens with the county.
Okay, so I might have to break that down, but who wants to speak to Mr. CEO or Ms. White-Fox?
So through you, Mr. Chair, the process now that's in place is whenever there is a new zoning bylaw amendment and official plan amendment that's made to allow for extraction on the property, the township will produce an objection letter that will be submitted to the ministry, just objecting to it until township has had a chance to fulfill its meaningful comment period. Likewise, the county has something similar on these. Again, their objection is until the county has had the opportunity to prepare comments. And the township also has the same practice where we receive major amendments with site plans for this. So again, sending that objection until there is the time to make comments to a review. Great, thank you very much.
Councilor Hurst.
No comments beyond what severely flagged, just an action plan. Process.
Councilor Goyda.
Just maybe a quick question. A ground monitoring report will be coming as well. I'm just wondering, without knowing, I guess, what that will come back and say, but would it be, is it more likely to get a more fulsome response if we send both the comments from both of those peer reviews at the same time to the operator, rather than this one now and then the next one later?
So through you, Mr. Chair, it could be better. I know that the contact for the ministry that we have is the contact for it appears all of the kids in the township. So he does have quite a bit of information that's coming to him. So it may be beneficial just to consolidate concerns from the township and put it into one piece of correspondence.
I agree with Councilor Goyda saying that works better for them. That's great. So I just piggyback on what Councilor Bailey saying, that the second last paragraph of the OAPS report does specifically say what the reviews have done and the shortfalls in the analysis of the pit operators consultant. So I would like that specific paragraph being highlighted and sent to the pit operator for their comments and indicate the fact that this has been requested previously and we have not seen any action yet on this. And when are they going to do this?
Can I add on to that?
Yes, you may, Mr. Mayor.
So this operator has a pit expansion going to the LPAT. It's been appealed for non-action. I would like that component or staff to build a timeline of non-action on our concerns to be included in the file for that application for the expansion. At part of, I believe it's in the ARA, part of the review of granting an application is a review of the operator's performance, past performance. And we have a couple years of requesting action and concerns around a wetland that have been, for lack of a better word, ignored. We haven't seen action, so I just want to make sure that that's captured and used as part of our portfolio.
Sure. Okay, I can amend the motion and include a timeline of our requests with respect to these issues and the lack of responses received since we've been identifying. And that be made available to the I guess our legal counsel before LPAT. Is that the appropriate wording?
No, do we actually need to have that wording in there, or is it can just?
We'll just do that. There's no need to have it.
Okay, fair enough.
Just like want to keep start talking because it's frustrating that we're asking and you know the ministry is not enforcing it as far as I understand. I mean, my other comment is, we have asked for this to be dealt with, and have you had any responses from the ministry? I believe we have compliance concerns around other operations which you've engaged. Is it the local rep is their title, or is it worth re-engaging that local rep on this issue as well?
Sure. No harm in it.
I mean, I don't know what else we can do, but
we'll just keep banging the table, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Sorry to hijack your.
No, all comments are welcome.
Could you capture that? Okay.
Yeah.
So from what I've said, when Councilor Willis has slightly amended this motion, is there any additional comments from the other members of council? Okay, so all in favor? Carried. I believe we're on the council reports, correct? Well, you're working away, and I apologize to council. Attended the Roma conference. There's too many. Yeah, Roma conference back in January, and provided an update on my personal Facebook page. So with your indulgence, I'm just gonna try to read it, maybe not verbatim, but some good information. I meant to do it at our last meeting, but we got distracted. So we attended, and so I took the opportunity to promote TAPMO to my fellow elected officials, distributing information about our concerns around taxation, site plan compliance, and other concerns around aggregate. I was able to speak directly to the Minister of Natural Resources about our local compliance concerns around aggregate producers. We were given a contact and commitment to review our concerns, and staff are engaging MNRF on this issue. And I look forward to an update soon. And Mr. CEO has mentioned that he has reached out to our local rep, and they're meeting with their aggregate specialist. Was that the terminology, Mr. CEO?
Yes.
So we're looking forward to that update. I was able to speak directly to the Minister of Municipal Affairs, Steve Clark. I mentioned that rural Ontario, including Twistle, needs rural growth to maintain sustainability. We're optimistic that the ministry will be reviewing rural growth. I have a scheduled meeting with MPP Ray. He's out of, I think it's Perth and Wellington, so a little component through TAPMO, and that's to just highlight the work plan through TAPMO. And I mentioned that our MPP is the Speaker of the House, and that makes it essentially we don't have representation inside the caucus or the legislature, because as a Speaker of the House, you're obligated to neither promote or be critical of the government or opposition. So you know, we maybe have a voice through this other MPP that represents a component of Wellington. So I would like to just, well, I'm going to have that meeting with him and speak with him from a Tamil perspective. I believe that the position of chair as Tamil has enabled us to get these meetings. I also received an email from the Office of the Auditor General requesting a meeting to discuss the aggregate industry in Ontario. They specifically mentioned reaching out to me as chair of Tamil. So I haven't set that meeting. There's an email in my inbox. I believe it's in the next few weeks. So that would be another opportunity to express our concerns with, if we have any, with the aggregate industry, the licensing, the management. So that's great news, I feel. Tamil has continued to evolve from its humble beginnings as the top 10 producing municipalities of Ontario to now representing 34 municipalities in Ontario. Part of our plan going forward with Tamil is we're looking at possibility of hiring an executive director, because we need a face and a consistency other than this one at Tamil. What I'm thinking and the executive are thinking is similar to the OSSGA's Norm Cheeseman, which is their executive director, that is able to go into the ministry office and, you know, have those meetings, build those relationships, and be a contact point for members of Tamil if they have applications coming forward, whether they have, you know, requests for rehabilitation components to the site plan that were successful, which were not. So anyways, it's a big conversation. It's going to be a bit challenging to hire an executive director. Tamil would have to become, I believe it's incorporated, because to be able to hire a staffer and then you have audit requirements, which cost more money, but at least starting that discussion and bringing it forward to the AMO meeting, so that that's where we usually get our largest audience of member municipalities, and hope, because fees will have to go up. So county staff are going to report back on a few funding models for this position. Then we're going to try and sell it to the members and see if there's uptake on it. But at least we're having that discussion, and because I feel and the executive feel we need that recognition at the ministries. So, but in saying that, Tamil's stock has gone up last few years, so it's good, and that's evident by the request. Last week, myself, the CEO, and our Wellington County Councillor, which you're all familiar with, Walmer, met with the University of Guelph president and their staff. One was government relations, and I believe the other one was their property person, for lack of a better term. And they indicated that they're going to have a new strategic plan coming out, which should drive their uses of these lands. And they do have substantial land holdings in Busselage. I don't want to speak to the details of their strategic plan, because my understanding it's not quite complete, but I feel that this council and the residents of Busselage will be very supportive of the direction the university will be going with their land holdings in Busselage in the future. So that's good news. We'll look at, and we had a bit of a discussion about not that we're not partners or working well together, but we feel we want to work a little bit more closely, and not that we're going to meet, you know, quarterly or anything like that. But I mentioned to the president that I'd like to meet more often so that we have these discussions and are on the same page. I guess that would be the end of the most update, but all in all, and I think it was Councillor Goyda that we were chatting. She said, "Oh, you had a good Roma conference," and it reminded me that I thought it was a good Roma conference. Lots of networking going on and spreading the word of Tamil, and so that's my update. If you have any questions on those items, that's hers.
Would it be reasonable to request the university full staff on the commission of their strategic plan to present that to council at an appropriate?
I think that'd be great.
Yeah, they said they give us a copy, but yeah, it'd be great to invite them to come.
Good. Do you have a resolution? Is there any council updates, council reports from any member of council?
Just going to comment, I went to the Roma conference as well. I think the networking component of it is really valuable. Funny story, but I was hoping to have met one person I was going to try to seek out of 15,000 people. And the first night she actually sat down 4 seats away from me. So I was able to go up and introduce myself kind of the first night. So I made that connection with this fellow counselor, Westman. So I was really glad to at least make some connections there. And I tended to gravitate to a lot more of the, there was some really great workshops on supporting seniors in rural communities and a lot of healthy living type workshops. So I've got a few notes that I've taken, and I'm hoping to be able to try to integrate some of the things that I've learned, either safe communities or trying to get some of the senior, healthy senior populations going. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was I just wanted to report that we had our very first youth advisory committee meeting on Monday night, and we had really great discussions, really great getting to know you kind of conversations. Staff Courtney and Justine did a great job at educational component about how it works, and I think it's going to be a really good group. Excited about that, so stay tuned. You'll be hearing from them.
I should probably know this, but what time did you have that meeting? 6?
6, yeah, 6 to 8:30.
Was there any concerns about, the parents have to, get them home from school and come back? Okay, good. Also, any other members?
I'm sure the kids would like to start at noon.
Well, I was thinking right after school.
They did ask to have you come in one day.
Not a chance. Courtney and I have already discussed it. Oh, sorry. All right, we have a resolution.
The council receives the mayor and council member updates for information.
All right, can we move that, please? Councilor Hurst, seconded by Councilor Spoulos. All in favor? Carried. Okay, so we have bylaws, Ms. White-Fox.
Following bylaw speaking has read 3 times and finally passed in open council. Bylaw 2023-009 being bylaw to adopt the budget for the corporation of the township of Clifton for the year 2023. Bylaw 2023-010 being a bylaw to appoint the deputy clerk for the corporation of the township of Clifton. And bylaw 2023-011 being a bylaw to appoint fence viewers for the corporation of the township of Clifton.
I'm going to move for that, please. Councilor Spoulos, seconded by Councilor Bailey. I looked at you. Any questions or comments around those? All in favor? Carried. Great. Any announcements from members of council? Okay. All right, I believe we are going into closed session now. Sure. Yeah. So we'll take a break and then Councilor Corey can take us into close. All right, thank you. We're going to go into close after, so you're going to have to. All right, welcome back, everyone. I believe we're going to go into our closed session, so I will be passing the chair over to Councilor Goyda.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So we're going to go into closed session for item 14.1. And Ms. White-Fox, would you be able to read the resolution for that, please?
The council should go into closed session under section 239 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of a confidential report prepared by the township solicitor regarding advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. The general subject matter is a human resource matter.
Right, get a mover to go into close. Councilor Bailey and Councilor Spoulos. All in favor? That's carried. We're in closed.
The council moves into open session at 2:25 p.m.
Okay, can I get a mover and a seconder? Councilor Spoulos, seconded by Councilor Bailey. All in favor? Carried. And to receive the information, Ms. White-Fox, could you read the resolution?
The council receives a confidential report prepared by the township solicitor regarding advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications for that purpose regarding a human resource matter, and that staff proceed as directed.
Okay, can we get a mover and seconder? Counselor Hurst, seconded by Counselor Bailey. All in favor? Carried. And now we'd like to proceed to B.
We're gonna order pizza.
Welcome back. I'd like to now pass the chair back to Mayor Sealy.
Thank you, Councilor Goya. I believe we have to go back into close. Ms. Whitefox.
The council shall go into closed session under section 239 of the Municipal Act for the purpose of a confidential report prepared by the municipal clerk regarding a sufficient plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on behalf of the municipality or local board. And this is regarding contract negotiations, and confidential verbal report regarding a personal matter about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. This is in respect to Heritage Committee appointment vacancy.
Thank you. May I move to that, please? Councilor Hurst, second by Councilor Spillis, all in favor? Carried. Going to close again. All right, Ms. Whitefox, you have some resolutions?
The council moves into open session at 2:43 p.m.
You gonna move her, please? Councilor Hurst, second by Councilor Bailey. All in favor? Carried. Next.
The council received a confidential report prepared by the municipal clerk regarding a sufficient plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on behalf of the municipality or local board. This is in respect to contract negotiations. And the confidential verbal report regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. And this is in respect to the Heritage Committee of appointment vacancy, and that staff proceeded through.
May I move to that, please? Councilor Hurst, second by Councilor Spillis. All in favor? Carried. Okay. Any business arising from the closed session? No. No motion from anyone. No. I might have new business. I meant to bring this up during the discussion for the Roswell pit, but are our aggregate operators, do they have to be in compliance with our property standards? So I've received complaints about the lack of mowing for the berms, and then the weeds are getting into the neighboring farmers' fields. Just wondering if this is an appropriate place to maybe ask staff to look into that under new business, or
We can look into it.
no, I need a resolution for that, or no? Okay, thank you. Because the new spring will be here shortly, and we can address that. That'd be great. Anything else from anyone? Conservatory bylaws.
The following bylaw be taken as read 3 times and finally passed over to council. Bylaw 2023-011 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of council for the corporation of the township of Clifton as meeting on the 8th day of February 2023.
You move to that. Councilor Goyda, seconded. Councilor Bailey. All in favor? Carried and adjourned. Oh, yes. One last thing before adjournment. I believe we have a new member joining us regularly at our council meetings. I want to congratulate Justine on becoming our deputy clerk, I believe. So welcome to the team, and I look forward to working with you. So congratulations.
Thank
you. Want to say a few words of how excited you are to work with us?
I am very excited. Thank you so much.
Excellent. All right, now adjourned.
The council hereby adjourns at 2:46 p.m.
Mover, Councilor Hurst, second by Councilor Spillis, all in favor? Carried. A little earlier than 4, but